Here it's great that we have a full house. I think that says a lot about what the community feels about being green and sustainable. So I'd like to thank you all for coming and welcome you here. This is the Green County Initiative Workshop. It's being sponsored by Indian River County and the Florida Green Building Coalition. My name is Peter O'Brien. I'm a county commissioner, and I'd like at this point to recognize the other commissioners that are here. If they could stand up and wave, please. Vice Chair Sandra Bowden and Commissioner Joe Fletcher. We also have quite a bit of staff. I just ask everybody from Indian River County to stand up so we can see. I know there's quite a few. We got Roland Boyd, Stan Bowling, Jim Davis, Rashawn Shine back there, Himathu, Tom Frame back there. So we got, or Buddy Evans, sorry. We've got quite a bit of representation from Indian River County. The other municipalities present, we'll start with the City of Sebastian. Al Paternoster is here. And Al, any other staff or anybody else?
Not yet. I expect some more to show up.
Okay, great. City of Vero Beach, we have Save Abel, Vice Mayor, Ken Day, Council Member, and any staff from Vero? Back there? Two staff, all right. City of Fellsmere, we have Mayor Sarah Savage is here, and I think she has a couple staff as well.
Yes, I have Kenny Hamilton and Bud Rudy, that are Public Works. Right here.
Okay. Franny Atchison from the town of Indian River Shores.
Yes, I have head of our building department, Richard Jefferson, and chief and head of all public safety for Indian River Shores, Bill Shawn.
Great. And also we have several of the school board members here, Karen Disney Brombeck and Ann Ruder.
Hi, how are you? And Susan Olson.
And Susan Olson.
She's our staff person here.
Right. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Darcy, he didn't stand up here in the New York County staff. Back in November, when I was first elected, one of the very first things I did was put together a very small advisory committee, just people I could talk to and discuss issues with. And one of the people on that advisory committee was Judy Orcutt. I'd like Judy to stand up and be recognized right now. Judy Orcutt is back there. From day one, and I've known Judy and her husband John quite a long time. From day one, when I first got elected, Judy said, "Pete, this is great, because now we can do some really great things for the green and the environment and be sustainable." So Judy picked up the ball and ran with it immediately. And due to her hard work and efforts, we did organize what we are calling the Indian River County Sustainability Committee. This is, again, a small group of people we've put together from all the different municipalities are recognized. And we organized together to bring forward the concept of making Indian River County and the 5 municipalities green governments. And I'd like to recognize the members of the Sustainability Committee. If you all could just stand up when I call your name. Again, Save Abel, City of Vero Beach. David Ederer with Mandela Development Corp. Barbara Brooks from the Indian River Green Team. Back there, Barbara. Gumanshu Matha, Environmental Engineer with County Utilities Department. Nancy Offit with the Treasure Coast Home Builders Association. Susan Olson, again, Indian River County Schools. Judy Orcutt, again, the co-founder of the committee. Franny Atchison, City Council of Indian River Shores. Holly Dill, Director of the Environmental Learning Center. Holly's in the back there. Amy Thoma from Terra Verde Development, sorry. Not present, but I haven't seen, was Jason Newmaker, City Manager of Fellsmere. Deb Bramwell, Clerk of Town of Orchid, and Kelly Brown. Is Kelly here? There's Kelly, I'm sorry. Kelly Brown, Habitat for Humanity. The goal of the committee was twofold, I believe. One is to bring a greater awareness of what we can do to become a more sustainable community. And this workshop is one of those clear things we can do to spread the word and let people know what they can do to become a more sustainable environment. The second goal is that I would like to bring before the Board of County Commissioners, and I hope all of the municipalities will bring forward to their respective councils a resolution that would say that they are looking to become certified as a green government and to follow the Florida Green Building Coalition guidelines to become a sustainable green government. And so hopefully after this workshop, we would have heard enough to get us fired up to bring forward to becoming a green community. With that, I'd like to go ahead and move to our next speaker. Amy Thoma is a green development consultant and is a true conservationist. Ms. Thoma believes in the philosophy of deep ecology, the belief that all living things have the same right to live and flourish. With this philosophy, Ms. Thoma started a green real estate development company in 2002 and has spearheaded the green movement in Vero Beach since then. As a committee member of the Florida Green Building Coalition, Ms. Thoma created the original Memo of Understanding that ultimately leads to a partnership between the Florida Home Builders Association and the Florida Green Building Coalition. She has been featured in Vero's Tropic Home magazine, both as a subject and a contributing writer on green development. Ms. Thoma holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of California, Berkeley in Environmental Sciences. Along with Judy Orcutt, Ms. Thoma put this workshop together to help promote and give insight on the green movement. And with that, Amy, I'd like to have you come up and give us your presentation. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Roy Bonnell, who's the Executive Director of the Florida Green Building Coalition. He has a table set up over here, and the Green Trends Conference this year will be at the Southeast Builders Conference. So there's a great opportunities for everybody to go up and be educated on green building and the trends in that area. And this workshop is also sponsored in part by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the Energy Office, and also the AIA Forum for a Sustainable Future. And for architects out there who need their CEUs, make sure you see Greg Burke, and he'll be happy to help you out with that. And also, of course, the Indian River County and its Board of County Commissioners. I wanted to start off today by giving a very broad, maybe a little too broad perspective on all of this. But so many of the things that we see and hear and read always refer to a shift or a change or something happening. So I wanted to give a really broad overview of what this shift is. And I like to call it the language of green. It's not just about green building, it's all about the different languages that we're hearing. A lot of times the metaphors and the language that we use is really important to almost underline what our thought patterns are and our choices are. So I know you've all heard and seen reports about green building last week in the New York Times, Sunday Magazine. Anytime you log on to Yahoo or MSN, something's popping up about green building. And I recently read this article in the University of Miami's magazine for their alumni about their greening up of their campuses. They're actually referred to as planting the seeds of sustainability on their campuses. That's the language of green. They're planting the seeds. In the article, and then I'm going to show you a video after, there are references at the end to this shift. So it's very important to understand the shift and this language of green that we keep hearing. Whenever I hear or learn about something new, I like to research its origins. And many of you may know that the environmental movement can trace its roots back to a book published in 1962. That's Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. It's a wonderfully titled book about the effects of DDT, and that really started the whole environmental movement and the legislation of the 70s, like the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. And basically, this was showing that our view of the world, our view of ourselves in the environment, and how we affect that was really changing. These are my recommended readings and viewings for anybody who wants to learn more about environmentalism in our culture. But let me give you an example of what a changing worldview is. In 1519, we're going back a little bit, Magellan sailed west from Spain, basically to find spices. When the last ship in his fleet returned 3 years later, the sailors realized that they had lost one whole day. That, of course, didn't make a whole lot of sense to them. It did not fit into the theory of the Earth being at the center of the universe. The only explanation was that the Earth, along with the other planets, actually revolved around the sun. So fairly quickly, the world went from being flat and at the center of the universe to just a planet that revolved around the sun and the solar system. Basically, a new world view had to emerge. And from that, along with a little help, of course, from Newton and Descartes, a new social order emerged, one that viewed the world and everything in it like a giant clock. So, of course, you have a language like, the clock is ticking and things like that that refer to our mechanistic worldview. So it's very rational and analytic. In essence, the objects are the sum of the parts, and the Earth is basically cold rock floating in space, and the parts of Earth are used to advance society. Let's forward ahead about 400 years. In the 1960s, the astronauts gave us this view from outer space. Once again, a simple trip, one around the world, one to the moon and back, made us re-examine our worldview. This image of Earth invokes feelings in a generation that the Earth is beautiful and fragile, and we are all a part of it. Not just a mechanical process hurling through a lifeless universe. The Earth seems to be more than the sum of its parts. The world is dynamic and richly diverse. It's not a mechanical one. At one point, I had a chance to study with James Lovelock, who is the author of the Gaia hypothesis. It's a theory that living and non-living parts of the Earth are viewed as complex interacting systems that can be thought of as a single organism. In essence, basically, the Earth itself is alive. So what if we made our decisions with this new worldview in mind? If we really thought of the Earth as kind of a living, breathing planet, what would our buildings look like? What would our cities look like? What if we viewed the Earth and the sun as this perfect power plant and the trees as perfect shelter? What if we based our ideas, our designs with the sun and trees in mind, not just engineer around them? William McDonough is a very well-known architect and designer, and he sees it like this. What if our buildings were alive? What if our homes and workplaces were like trees, living organisms participating productively in their surroundings? Imagine a building enmeshed in the landscape that harvests the energy from the sun, sequesters carbon, and makes oxygen. Imagine on-site wetlands and botanical gardens recovering nutrients from circulating water, fresh air, flowering plants, and daylight everywhere. Beauty and comfort for every inhabitant. A roof covered in soil and seeding to absorb the falling rain, birds nesting and feeding in the building's verdant footpaths. In short, a life support system in harmony with the energy flows, human souls, and other living things. Hardly a machine at all. So, we are going from the machine as a metaphor or a clock to the natural world or a tree as a metaphor. We're planting the seeds. But what does all this talk about changing the worldviews really have to do with green building and sustainability? Green building has many definitions, but I like to think of it like this. At every aspect of design, planning, construction, or maintenance, the impacts to the environment are considered. But green building doesn't have to apply just to building. You probably have heard other terms like green living, green cars, green dining, green hospitality, green government, of course. In that sense, we are developing this language of green. And what green means is that every part of the process, whether it's in manufacturing, delivering a service, investing money, impacts to the environment are weighed to either reduced or eliminated. This is the new language of this new worldview. The definition of sustainability is the ability to provide for the needs of the world's current population without damaging the ability of future generations to provide for themselves. When a process is sustainable, it can be carried out over and over without negative environmental effects or a possibly high cost to anyone involved. So what can we do to think green and achieve sustainability? What steps can we take to act as stewards of this beautiful living planet? How can we carry out the ideas of this new worldview that uses a tree as a metaphor and not a clock? The first step is for today, just to listen and observe with fresh eyes and ears to what the excellent speakers are going to share with you today. The second is to ask a lot of questions. And the third is to start to formulate and share your new ideas and be very creative. And consider this new language of green in creating your ideas. So go plant your seeds. It's all about making choices as if life mattered and as if the planet matters.
People are talking about sustainability. Better yet, they're making sustainable choices. Choices about the products they consume and the waste they leave behind. We know these choices are essential to our quality of life, today and tomorrow. The choices we make impact our living planet's natural resources. Unfortunately, our appetites as consumers are depleting resources faster than they can possibly renew themselves. Now we want to widen these circles of conversation and our circles of influence. The conversations we want to have now focus on how we work together to sustain our natural resources. How can we renew them? It's all about choices. In 2002, the Sarasota County Commission adopted a sustainability resolution. Then, in 2004, they adopted the following goals. First, to see us develop an understanding of the concept of sustainability as the focal point of community development and community building, opening our minds to the tremendous balances that must be achieved, undaunted by the task. And second, to see the big picture more often, recognizing that it is not today, but tomorrow that we are influencing, that the good of the whole and tomorrow often outweigh the good of the individual and today. We will be judged by future generations on our ability to balance the equation. Moving forward now, into the summer of 2005, County Administrator Jim Lay invited community leaders to a series of discussions about their values, what they would most like to leave behind, and what they personally would commit to doing about it. Those residents made clear during the community conversations the one thing they value most about Sarasota County is its environment, and the one thing they most want to leave as a legacy is a healthy environment. It is our responsibility now to channel that feedback and to translate our existing policies into a heightened state of action, to leave a viable planet for future generations, and to create a healthier place for today's generations. Each of us, government and citizens alike, must focus anew on how we impact the living planet in everything we do. This requires a culture shift. The products we buy, the vehicles we drive, the places we choose to live and work and play, all have an impact on our environment, along with our cumulative behavior relative to consuming and disposing of resources. Within Sarasota County, we understand sustainability to mean stewardship of all our resources in a way that enables us to meet the basic human need for a quality place to live today and to leave a legacy of enhancement behind for future generations. To become a sustainable community, we must successfully balance economic, social, and environmental factors in all the decisions we make. More than 20 years ago, Sarasota County embarked on a journey that would lead us toward becoming a more sustainable community. Through a variety of initiatives over time, the scope of the county's efforts has expanded significantly, producing major developments county-wide, such as reduced drinking water consumption per capita by 40%, preserved 16,000 acres of environmentally sensitive land, invested in the early stages of a green fleet, achieved LEED Gold building standards in 2 county buildings, added hybrid buses to the SCAP system, adopted Renewable Communities Initiative, passed a green building resolution to incentivize green building. We have moved from the demonstration project that is the Florida House Learning Center to private and nonprofit sectors building or operating green. Examples include the Girl Scout Regional Headquarters, the Holiday Inn Hotel Complex at Lakewood Ranch, and entire communities such as WCI, where every home is certified green. The landscape is 40 Arts and Neighborhood certified, and the golf course is Audubon International certified. Lakewood Ranch has an informational green gallery demonstrating the various building systems that contribute to ecologically sound construction. The Sarasota County Commission established fast-track permitting incentives for green building projects. We understand as a community that it is easier to build sustainable when you construct anew. We are challenged with learning more effective ways to retrofit existing neighborhoods, businesses, and transportation systems.
Sarasota County really has tried to be a leader. We have a long way to go, but we've done some pretty exciting things. We are trying to be sustainable, renewable, and carbon neutral. And our most exciting challenge, not an accomplishment yet, but a challenge, is that we just passed a resolution, the first county in the nation, to take the 2030 carbon neutral challenge that the American Institute of Architects has put forward. We are going to be 60% carbon neutral by 2010, and then inch our way up about 5% each 10 years to get to 2030, for 5 years to get to 2030. So we are working very hard on that.
In 2004, the county took steps to determine our baseline values relative to resource consumption and environmental degradation. We used an instrument called an ecological footprint analysis, which measures our use of nature based on biologically productive land area necessary to generate the resources used and to absorb the waste of that population. The analysis considers local population, acreage, electricity use by source, number of vehicles, road miles, gasoline use, natural gas use, recycling, type, age, and number of housing units, and biocapacity, that is, area of different types of land. From this information are calculated energy, housing, transportation, and recycling footprints. When Sarasota County's 2003 footprint data was analyzed, we learned that our footprint is 22.2 acres per capita, slightly smaller than the average U.S. citizen's 24 acres per capita. To consider this in a broader context, the biocapacity of the planet is less than 5 acres per capita. The results indicated Sarasota County's biocapacity to be 2.1 acres per capita. How can we lessen the size of that footprint? How can we learn to make the choices that lead to less demand on our natural resources? How can we influence others to do the same? One thing is clear. County government cannot and should not try to own this issue. To succeed will require an integrated effort. Public and private interests must learn ways to work together with a shared vision for a tomorrow that is better than today. We're on our way to a more sustainable future together. More and more people are talking. More and more people, businesses, and governments are making sustainability a priority. We know it's not enough to consider just the start of the journey. We must explore the impacts along the entire road ahead. This will require the culture to shift. As we have learned, sustainability is not an office or a movement. It is a way of life.
Eric Martin is going to be your first speaker presenting the heart of the local government green building standard, the green standard for local governments. Eric is a senior research engineer in Buildings Research Division of the Florida Solar Energy Center up in Cocoa. He is also a member of the Building America program that is part of the U.S. Department of Energy. He's very active in the Florida Green Building Coalition. He served as the secretary and the board of directors. He's been very involved with the U.S. Green Building Coalition and helping them develop the LEED Homes project as well. And he's going to give you an overview of the Florida Green Building Coalition as well as the local green government standard. And there's plenty of time for lots of questions, so please listen and ask your questions. And Eric, you're on.
Good morning. Organizers of the workshop for inviting me here today. Today we're going to be talking about local government sustainability in the context of a certification standard that's available from the Florida Green Building Coalition. Is anybody familiar with the Florida Green Building Coalition? Have you all heard about that group before, or this is really the first time that you're hearing about them?
Quite the first time for a lot.
First time for a few? Okay. Florida Green Building Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit volunteer membership organization. It's a statewide nonprofit, founded in the year 2000, really looking to encourage green building in our state, hoping to accomplish both environmental as well as economic benefits. Since the year 2000, they've developed a number of certification standards to reward people who are doing green building in a variety of sectors. And today I'm going to be focusing on this particular standard for Florida city and county governments to help them strive to go green and also give them a reward for doing so via this independent third-party certification. So what I'm going to go over today as an outline, give a little bit of an introduction and background to how this came to be, how it was put together, talk a little bit about its purpose. Why would a local government want to pursue this particular designation? We'll go into some of its qualification principles, as well as the implementation process for moving forward with this. We'll talk about some of the documentation and the materials that go along with this standard that actually provide some tools to help local governments evolve. And then we'll get into some of the criteria that it covers, and I'm going to provide a couple of examples. So as an introduction, back in 2002, when we started this effort, it actually came to be as a result of awarded from the Department of Energy to the Florida Energy Office, and it was the work was spearheaded by the Florida Solar Energy Center, along with the Florida Green Building Coalition, and several pilot city and county governments that we worked with during this process, which included Miami-Dade County, Sarasota County, the city of Gainesville, and Alachua County, all of which had shown some dedicated green interest already. So we wanted to work with some of the leaders in this area. As you just saw the video from Sarasota County, you can see that they've been doing quite a bit already. And really, in a nutshell, what this is that the standard will allow any Florida city and county government to apply, and if they adhere to the principles, they will be certified green by the Florida Green Building Coalition. So that's where we're at in a nutshell. Really, this grant that spurred the effort, the theme of this was to come up with something that could foster what they were considering energy and environmental integration. And the idea here was that within government, both state government as well as local government, we have many different departments. And all the departments are somewhat environmentally minded. I mean, that's on the agenda to some degree in every single local government department. But what was found is that rarely do these local government departments work together effectively to achieve essentially a better end result. Everybody's working and thinking about the environment and what their role is with regards to the environment, but there was really a lack of communication amongst departments. And what was thought is that if we could come up with something to encourage that communication, get these local government departments talking in a little bit more of an effective manner, that they could actually end up with a better end result by working together more effectively. So what Florida Green Building Coalition thought is, let's look towards this concept of green building to try and accomplish this linkage. And let's try and focus at the local government level where we were hoping that it would really have the most profound impact on our communities at large. So what we're doing here with the standard, and really with any green standard in particular, is we're looking at the general elements of green building, and we're trying to implement them into the particular sector that is our focus. In this case, it's local government sustainability. So when we talk about green building, and you hear that term, what does it mean? Well, it generally covers these basic elements, which include things like energy conservation, water conservation, thinking about wildlife habitat, open space, green space, thinking about atmospheric and aquatic environments. Materials are an important consideration, as is durability. Access and transportation we want to think about, as well as environmental education. So these are the general elements of green building. And what the Florida Green Building Coalition is doing is taking those general elements and really boiling them down into individual sectors. And they've come up with 5 different certification and guidance programs that incorporate these elements for different sectors. So what they have to date is a standard for residential construction, which is called Green Home Standard, one for commercial building construction, one for land developments, which is actually a more of a community or subdivision scale standard, looking at either residential developments or mixed-use developments. They have the local government standard, and they also have a draft right now, a pilot of a residential high-rise standard. What each of these standards do is take those general elements of green building that I just showed and really make them applicable to each particular sector so that we can actually incorporate those elements, achieve those particular environmental benefits according to what we're doing. Are we building homes? Are we developing land? Are we operating a local government? And then in return, we hope to see some of the other benefits that result from green building, including economic benefits, health benefits, etc. So what Florida Green Building Coalition did with this particular standard, the local government standard, is they took those general elements. They're trying to put them down in the context of local government sustainability. So they wanted to come up with 3 general categories of the kinds of things that local government does and how we can incorporate these elements into those things. So they came up with 3 categories. First one we call lead by example, and these are things that the local government does in-house, does really for themselves as part of the function, that can set an example to the private sector and the rest of the community. So you heard about on the video, Sarasota County, building some public green buildings, their library, their Florida House Demonstration Center. All these things that they were doing to really lead by example, which has, in turn, spurred quite a bit of the private sector in Sarasota County to start building green. So they use these as educational models to show the community about the benefits of green building, which eventually spurred the interest from the private sector to start building green. So that's what the lead by example category is about. The control area is really another function local governments have, that they can create incentives, ordinances, resolutions, different things to incentivize, encourage, or in some cases require the rest of the community to do things green. On the video you heard about some of the Sarasota County resolutions, ordinances, incentives that they have. The last major program area is education. And these are things that the local government can do to directly educate the rest of the community about green building. So if we start to look at some more specifics, what does this look like? As you're going to see, the way we've categorized these criteria for the local government standards department by department. So I just pulled out a few criteria from the list that we have under a department that might be something like natural resources management or environmental protection. Just for exemplary purposes, to show that lead by example type criteria might be becoming a member of local environmental groups or agencies. In this case, there's a statewide Florida group called FLARA, which is the Florida Local Environmental Resource Agency. So credit can be given by becoming a member of that, by creating an endangered lands conservation or purchasing program, or developing and implementing an invasive species removal plan. Just a couple of examples to highlight what this lead by example is all about. An example under the control area is to offer some incentives, such as tax-based or some other kind of alternative fuel vehicle incentive that could be offered. Under education, there's a whole wide range of activities that can be undertaken. One thing to take advantage of is the local government website, posting some information there, such as air quality index information. They can also offer a variety of seminars to the general public on green building. So there's just a couple of examples to highlight what these categories are all about. So the purpose of putting this whole package together, we wanted to try and accomplish a couple of things. As I mentioned earlier, the theme of this grant that got us started, foster better communication between the various local government departments. Get them talking a little bit more effectively to hopefully accomplish those goals that everybody's working towards in a more effective manner. We're hoping this program results in education to the community at large in terms of what green building is and what the benefits are. We're hoping that this particular standard acts as somewhat of an umbrella standard to increase the penetration of things like green homes from the private sector, green commercial buildings from the private sector, green land developments, whether that be through education, whether it be through leading by example, whether it be through creating incentives for the private sector to go in that direction. We see that as being one of the purposes of this. Probably most importantly, I think the purpose of this standard is to try and provide a comprehensive toolbox for local governments to help them evolve. You know, it's one thing to make a decision that we want to move in this area, but then there's a lot of research involved in terms of what can we do? What are we doing now? What could we do better? What programs are available to us to help us? That's what we're trying to put together with this standard documentation. It's really a toolbox such that once a local government decides to move in this direction, we provide them with the tools they need to do it. And it also serves another purpose in the sense that if for some reason a local government doesn't necessarily want to achieve full certification right now, for whatever reason, maybe it's just too cumbersome, maybe there's some other priorities that are going on, we're going to get to full certification later, but give us the toolbox and let us look at it. So maybe we can pull out at least a few pieces of good information that we can start working on now. And we don't necessarily have to try and undertake the whole package. So if we happen to have on our agenda some goal that we wanted to achieve a particular ordinance or one particular activity, or we've gotten a push to implement an environmentally preferable purchasing program in our local government, we want to provide this toolbox where we can pull out these goals in singular fashion for certain local governments that want to go that route, while other local governments may be interested in the complete package. So it serves a couple different purposes. The appeal. Why do we want to look at not just green building, not just sustainability, but actually working towards a certification program in this arena? Why would a local government want to do that? It can certainly bring some recognition and statewide publicity to the local government. We have had 2 local governments succeed in being certified under this program. The first was Pinellas County. That was the first county to be certified, and the second was the city of St. Petersburg. They have both recognized some significant statewide and local publicity from doing this. And they've been happy to receive that, to actually spread the message, to let people know, not only within their community, but outside of the community, all the good things that they're doing. We're also thinking that this designation may create another avenue for a local government to receive some grant monies that they ordinarily wouldn't have gone towards. Or, if it is a grant area that they would have moved towards, maybe this designation, and actually, more importantly, the process that was undertaken to achieve this designation, will make that grant application that much more competitive. We're also working actively with state government to try and find out what can the state do to reward city and county governments for moving in this direction. As we're going to see, green building benefits not only our local community, but the state as a whole, and also the nation. So we've been working with state government to educate them on the benefits of green building, and also trying to extract what kinds of things can the state offer to city and county governments for doing this kind of thing, for moving in this direction, for achieving the certification. We don't necessarily have anything yet, but that's an open dialogue that we're trying to undertake with the state. Undertaking the process that I'm going to show you for achieving this designation will definitely identify potential areas for better cooperation. And it's going to provide some guidance for achievement of goals. Goals that were already on the books, as well as future goals. The end result is that local governments will function in a more efficient manner once they've gone through this process, which can result in dollar savings. It can result in effective risk and asset management, and it's going to result in better internal communication. Also, this local government process and the certification program is designed to also catalyze community involvement and move towards enhancing the economy, providing greater environmental benefits for the community as a whole, and also engaging the citizens and the community to work together with local government in these matters. So the qualification principles of this standard, how is it working? It is very flexible and more of a performance-based standard than prescriptive, in the sense that there's not 5 things I'm telling you that every local government has to do in order to be certified. There's actually a whole slew of things to choose from, and each local government is tasked with picking the things that make the most sense for them. What functions do they perform? How big are they? What are their goals? So it is very flexible. We're going to see that we've grouped these principles into different categories, and really, we employ a point system. So everything that you do, you earn points for. If you earn enough points, then you're entitled to this designation. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the details of qualification. One of the tools that comes along with this standard is a spreadsheet application tool that actually helps you customize this. But basically, just to go over the general principles, once you start looking at this, you'll see that there's a total of 365 points available in 19 different categories. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to look at and consider. But what each local government really needs to do, and this was part of our challenge, is trying to create a singular program that can apply to any city or county government in the state of Florida. And as you know, all of them are very different in terms of size, scope, the kinds of functions that they perform. So in order to make this flexible yet consistent, part of this process requires that local governments look at all these available options and determine which things apply to our functions, which things apply to the things we do. The criteria that doesn't apply to us actually gets taken out of contention. So local governments, one of their first steps is to look at all these 365 points, which would be the maximum total, and start to carve down according to what it is. For example, you'll see that there's some categories there that deal with municipal electric utility. Well, if there isn't a municipal electric utility operating within the local government, you obviously can't do most of that stuff because you don't have that as your function. There's things that deal with police and fire. Some cities contract that out to the county, some counties don't do it, they let the cities handle it, so that's not going to be part of the function for this particular county. There are some criteria in there regarding the school board. Now, cities certainly don't have a school board. Counties do have a school board, which is actually a different functioning governing body than the county commission, and actually considered separate. But in the context of a county application, we do include them together. Remember, one of the points here is fostering better communication amongst these groups. So we're not going to, if you're a county, we're not going to throw the school board out. But if you're a city, well, you don't have much control. So that's one of the first steps that you have to do. Then you start looking at, okay, so all of the points that apply to our function, how many points can we achieve here? And actually, qualification is broken into different levels according to the percentage of points you earn with reference to the percentage of stuff that applies. So we actually have a couple different levels that are available to achieve. Under the certified category, you can get silver, gold, or platinum, and it's broken down according to what percent of the points you achieve according to what applies to your function. But we also want to give credit for local governments that go through the process that maybe aren't able to be certified tomorrow. Maybe a local government goes through this process and they say, well, looking at this, you're telling me I need to get 20% of the stuff minimum that applies to me in order to get certified. Well, we looked and we're at about 18%. And it's going to take us some time to actually get that extra 2%. We can't do it overnight. I mean, if we're looking at things like policy, we can't do that overnight. That's going to take some time. But because the Green Building Coalition wants to reward that local government for going through this process that we're going to talk about in a minute and determining where they are, we have this category which is called registered, which is any government that's gone through the process and followed the recommended steps. Whether they've got enough points or not, it doesn't matter. We still want to reward them for going through that process. So they're deemed registered, which is good for a period of 3 years. We hope that those registered governments will continue to strive to get to a certified level within 3 years. So this process that I'm talking about really consists of about 8 steps. And the first step is really to make a commitment from the local government, from the top down. We really encourage to have some kind of resolution, some kind of ordinance, some kind of modification to the local government mission statement that states the government's commitment to move in this area. Because as we're going to see, there is some time that needs to be spent on this. Somebody within the local government is going to have to be tasked with this activity. And we'd like that task order to come from the top such that it's meaningful and people feel that they can actually spend the time working on that and they're not trying to do this nights and weekends and that kind of thing. And it sounds like at least Indian River County is looking at an ordinance or some kind of resolution to pursue this designation. So that's great. That's the important first step. There's actually points available on the standard for doing that. So if that recommended first step is followed, boom, automatic points for doing so. The next step will be for the local government to establish an in-house coordinator. This is the person that's really going to lead the charge from the local government point of view. They're not necessarily going to be working on it alone. They're going to need involvement from other local government departments, but they are the point person. They're the one leading the charge. The Florida Green Building Coalition, as part of the certification program, is going to assign its own point person, which is called the evaluator. And the local government in-house coordinator is going to work with the evaluator together as a team to make this happen and set up all the remaining steps. There's a pre-application form that does need to come in that shows the Florida Green Building Coalition that the local government is indeed committed to this. And the first step that they ask the in-house coordinator to do, in concert with all the departments within the local government, is to undertake this activity where they look at all the available credits and determine what applies to us and what doesn't apply to us. And in order to do that, you really have to engage all the departments to find out, do we do this activity? Do we not do this activity? If we do it, how are we doing it? Do we meet the suggested requirements in the standard? So the coordinator starts developing a team of departmental representatives to help with this process. As I mentioned, FGBC does provide an application qualification tool to help the coordinator in this activity. So then what the in-house coordinator does is really starts to look at all the things they determine that apply and start to find out, are we doing these in really an effective manner? Is there any way we can incorporate sustainability into these functions? Maybe we've already done it. Maybe we're already entitled to a whole slew of points on this standard and we didn't necessarily know it. And I will mention that both St. Petersburg as well as Pinellas County, once they got to this point and started looking across the board, they realized that, wow, we're actually doing quite a bit. And to achieve the minimum silver level of certification, we really don't have to do much more. We're kind of already doing these things. It's just that they were just piecewise all over the place, and most people didn't even realize we're doing it. So now that we've let all this good, sustainable stuff that we're doing filter to the top, look what we've put together and look at the accomplishments that we've been achieving over the years. So in some cases, that's what the local government may find. In other cases, they may find that, well, we're doing lots of great things. It's not necessarily enough to be certified at the minimum level. So what would it take us to be certified at the minimum level? What are we not doing that we could do better? And how long would it take us to implement some of these new measures? So that's also part of the process. And it's really those discussions that are going on to find out what applies to us, what are we doing, what are we not doing, that achieves this overall theme of energy and environmental integration. Getting these departments to the same table to talk about sustainability and to learn from each other about what the different departments are doing. Once the local government decides they're ready to submit for certification, they do put together an application package that's turned into the Florida Green Building Coalition. The evaluator that FGBC assigned, their job is not only to help the local government along the way, they're the one tasked in the end with actually determining whether the local government has met the qualification principles or not. And then the designation is awarded. We already talked about the different levels that are there, 3 certified levels, silver, gold, and platinum, and also the registered level, where we encourage the local government to get certified within 3 years. I want to talk about some of these standard materials that the local government has to work with, this toolbox to help them evolve. So when the local government actually takes interest in this, contacts the Green Building Coalition, asks for help, they usually get this package that contains a number of different materials. There's the standard document itself that lays out the qualification principles. Through our partnership with Miami-Dade Durham, we have 2 very detailed modules on just a couple of different sustainability areas that this standard covers. One is on green fleet management and vehicle maintenance, and the other one is on environmental landscape management. So these are 2 modules that we're actually providing quite a bit of detail on how to incorporate this within your local government. But also, they're acting as examples of what local government can do by way of education. We hope that local governments pursuing this designation will look at these modules as examples of what a city or county government can do for their community to assemble a list of resources, tips, and techniques, in this case maybe about fleet management that the rest of the community can use. So these were put together by Miami-Dade Durham. What could Indian River County put together? What could the city of Vero Beach put together? Each of those modules come with some informative posters as well, in the case of green fleet management, to hang up in a vehicle shop, to remind the workers about the important concepts of green fleet management. Again, an educational activity that we hope local governments applying for this can replicate and expand. We've already got fleet management, we've already got landscape management. What else can be done? There's posters for the landscape management too. There's two media discs that come with it. One is the spreadsheet application tool that I talked about. Another one is a program from Miami-Dade County that was put on their local access. It's about environmental landscape management. Again, it's an example of an educational type activity that local governments can do. They can create these media presentations, TV programs, detailed websites to help educate the community about what's going on. We just saw that great video from Sarasota. That's a great example. So doing these kinds of things gives direct credit for the local government on this standard. Now, how we categorize all this criteria for the local government standard is a little bit different than what you might see in other green building standards. If anybody's looked at the LEED program or the FGDC Green Home Standard, you may find that the criteria is grouped in terms of environmental interest categories. Things that save energy efficiency through the construction of a home. Things that save water when you're constructing and operating a home. Things that you want to do to the site before you actually start construction. So that's how that's categorized. If you look at FGDC's land development standard, they took a slightly different approach to categorization, and they categorized these criteria roughly in the order that a developer might follow as he develops a tract of land, to make it easier for the developer. So first, maybe he's looking at ecosystems and resources. What does he want to preserve? What are his assets on that site? Then maybe he looks at the circulation pattern, both pedestrian as well as automobile in the development, to plan that out. Then he starts thinking about, okay, I need to put utilities in my development. I want to do some public amenities in my development. I want to do some things to encourage community-based education in my development. Now, with the local government standard, we categorize things yet a different way, and we figured it would be most effective rather than break everything that deals with energy into an energy category and everything that deals with water into a water category. Let's break this apart into a generic departmental breakdown. So we just took a stab at coming up with some typical local government departments that exist in city and county governments here in Florida. So we put everything that applies to, let's say, a building and development type department under that category. We put everything that might deal with the Parks and Rec department under the Parks and Rec category. Why did we do that? Because when we start engaging in this process and we want to bring all these local governments to the table, we don't want to necessarily give each department or each employee in the department a big list of 365 points worth of criteria. It would just be too cumbersome. We want to give them, okay, Parks and Rec, here's your stuff. Okay, building and development, here's your stuff. Go through it, tell me what you're doing, tell me what you're not doing, tell me what you could do. So it just makes it a little bit easier. And the coordinator is actually given a pretty detailed spreadsheet tool that I'm not going to go over in this forum. But any local government that decides to apply for this standard does get somewhat of a training on this spreadsheet tool and how it can be used to further customize this, because we took a stab at this generic departmental breakdown. We realized that it's not going to apply word for word for every city or county. So the coordinator can take it and actually customize it. We've got a category called administration. Maybe I'm in county government, and in my county government, we call that Board of County Commissioners. So we want to rename it to make it easier for ourselves. And we also found that FGDC had filed some stuff under, let's say, I don't know, human resources that actually in our local government is taken care of by the Board of County Commissioners. So I want to kind of shift all these qualification criteria around to make it customized and applicable to my particular situation. That's what this tool enables you to do, along with highlighting the environmental benefits of each of these things. Because each of these criteria, what does it result in? Energy efficiency, land use, water efficiency, health, materials, solid waste. Maybe it does all of those things. This tool is going to help the local government figure that out. So when we got to developing this standard, how did we actually put all these things together? And where did we come up with all these criteria? Well, that's where our pilot cities and counties came in. Those few that we picked that had shown some dedicated green interest, we sat down with them and we said, guys, you're doing a lot of great stuff already. What is it that you're doing? Can you please tell us what you're doing and what's been successful and the kinds of things that you're thinking about? So we saw that video with all the great things Sarasota County is doing. Most of that stuff has been rolled into this standard as different criteria that are available for points. But we didn't stop there, because we know that even the greenest local government can still evolve. It can still move forward and be better. So we spent a lot of time going around the state, meeting with statewide groups to deal with energy, to deal with land use, to deal with the environment, to ask them, where would you like to see local governments go in the future? What can even the greenest of local governments do to better themselves? So we extracted those policies, those criteria, and put them in the standard as well to make up this 365 points worth of stuff. I just want to give some highlights now from the St. Petersburg qualification. This isn't all of the things they did, but this is a few of the things that they did that earned them this designation, and it will give you a feel for the kinds of things that are on the standard and the kinds of things local governments can do to move towards sustainability. So, stewardship undertaken by their administration. They did revise the city's mission statement for a focus on the environment. What they did for an in-house coordinator is they designated their internal services department, which works directly under the mayor, to be the group charged with doing this, and actually they were given some funding and dedicated time to spend on this, so they actually get points for that. They did join a number of environmental organizations, and they're starting to play a more active role in all these organizations, including EPA Energy Star, Florida Green Building Coalition, U.S. Green Building Council, FLARA, and several others. As another category, as a whole, the city tracks some various indicators of sustainability, including energy use, water use, and solid waste generation. And the idea here being that in order to do better in these areas, you really need to benchmark and continue to benchmark where you are today, such that if you are expecting energy savings in the future, savings over what? Well, we need to know where we're spending energy today. And it's not just looking at it as the city or county as a whole, and here's this huge electricity bill that we pay every month as a city or county as a whole. You have to dig into where are we spending this energy, which departments, which buildings in which departments, so you can start to prioritize your goals in terms of energy conservation. You really need to benchmark where you are today. A couple things that the city found it had already been doing that were worth points on the standard were some other designations that this particular local government program leverages, such as Florida Main Street designation. They had blue wave beaches. They had a municipal marina, which was designated as a clean marina by the Department of Environmental Protection. They were a Tree City USA, and they had also received some awards from the DEP for their water and wastewater treatment plants. So all those things that they had already achieved, what they found is that gave them credit on this FGBC local government standard already. Some educational activities they were undertaking. They leveraged their website to a great degree to put a lot of information on there, including info about ecotourism, outdoor recreational activities that are available in their community. Their air quality index information is there, their water quality testing results, information about their public transportation program is there. They have some detailed educational campaigns ongoing about stormwater management in the community, and also how the public and private sector can reduce their water use, so that was worth some credit. One of the things they really started to focus on, they found, is is one of their priority areas was to look at the use of alternative fuel for city-owned vehicles. So they're looking at a whole bunch of different fuels, including natural gas, biodiesel, looking at purchasing alternative fuel vehicle, passenger cars, and also working with the bicycle police patrol, all to reduce their impact on the environment through vehicular activities. Some objectives that were achieved through policies, and it's not just policies about incentivizing green buildings. I mean, there's all different kinds of environmental policies that earn credit on this standard, including things like having a tree preservation and lane clearing ordinance, historic preservation, also considered green, having an ordinance there. Ordinance and rules for purchasing of efficient electronic equipment, and also rules for recycling end-of-life electronic equipment. Got them credit on this standard. For encouraging mixed-use zoning and development through their zoning ordinances, and considering pedestrian access and walkability when they're doing their planning. Also got them some credit. They do offer a few types of incentives. There's an alternative commuting incentive. There's actually a typo there. It's supposed to say commuting incentive. For employees, they give a bus pass discount. They do give special discounted rates for the community to encourage them to reduce solid waste generation and reduce their water use, meaning that the less you use, the less you pay, and once you reach a certain threshold, the price jumps up dramatically. So using this price-based idea to encourage conservation. They also offer rebates for purchasing and installation of water-conserving fixtures. Wanted to just give a couple of other examples about some green building ordinances that are out there in Florida. These are things that St. Pete has not exactly fully developed yet. I know that they're working on some of these things as is Pinellas County. But as you heard in the Sarasota County video, they have a number of resolutions about green building. This is one particular one, which I think was put into effect 2004 or 2005 to incentivize green building. And they have a couple different things available. One is rezone or special exception petitions for a proposed green development or subdivision. One where they might consider things like increased density, bonuses if that development is pledging to be green. So they could actually rezone it to have higher density if they're telling the city or county that you're going to be doing it green. They have expedited permitting for both buildings as well as developments that are pledging to be green. I think they're pledging 3 days for homes and 5 days for commercial buildings. They'll turn that permit around, which is actually a significant increase in turnaround time compared to what the normal processing route is. They've also been giving some discounts off of building permit fees, and they weren't actually the first to do this. The city of Gainesville has had a resolution in place for quite some time that does this, but any projects that are coming to the building department pledging to be green and certified green get half off the building permit fee, and along with that fast track permit. So they've actually put some dollar incentives on this. Here's one more, and I'm going to wrap up after this. This is an interesting one that we saw coming out of Miami-Dade County, which they had a targeted jobs incentive where they're really encouraging businesses outside of Miami-Dade to relocate to Miami-Dade County. And I don't have all the details about that job incentives program. It was really a very broad program, but what was interesting was the bonuses that they included in that program to encourage green businesses, not just any business to come into our city or county, but we want green businesses to come in. So in addition to the standard bonuses that they were giving for a business to relocate in Miami-Dade, if you plan to operate in a green building, they give you an extra $1,000 bonus. They give you an extra $500 bonus if you have renewable energy on your business. And they'd also give you a $1,500 bonus if your business dealt with renewable energy, if you were a solar contractor, or if you were a photovoltaics manufacturer, and you're coming to our county, we give you this bonus. And these bonuses were given per new job created. So there's actually $3,000 in bonuses available per new job created to move that green business into Miami-Dade County. So that was kind of another interesting ordinance that I wanted to throw out there. So I want to wrap up just by giving a couple websites for more information. To get all the details on the local government program, you can go to floridagreenbuilding.org. Those interested in the work done by the Florida Solar Energy Center, there's our website there. You can find out lots of information dealing with energy efficiency and renewable energy there. Any questions?
Yeah, Eric, thank you very much. Let's start first to see if any of the elected officials have questions. This was a properly advertised public workshop, so we're in the sunshine, so you can feel free to discuss things with any of the members up here. Once the group up here is done, I will open it up to the audience if anyone would like to come up. We would have you come up and use the microphone and just state your name and ask your questions. So with that, anybody up here at the table have any questions for Eric?
I have one question. Indian River Shores is going to be building and renovating a public safety building. A couple of questions. One, can you put a cost factor, an additional cost factor to a building which is green, and can you comment on savings over the life of the building on maintenance and et cetera? Is that possible at this stage?
It is difficult to put a cost factor on it because it really depends what your starting point is and really how green do you want to go. Let's think of really, in order to accomplish green and for it to make sense, is that we do have to do some kind of life cycle analysis where if we do spend any more up front, we are going to get it back before the building sees its end of useful life. So we're really trying to improve the life cycle economics of the building rather than just minimize first cost. And that's how we really end up with a better performing building in the long run. We can look at a range of added first costs anywhere from 2 to 10% added first cost is what we hear out there. That's a pretty wide range. So are we 2% or are we 10%? I don't know. It really depends on what's our standard level of construction. You know, are we just building to the minimum building allowed by law? Or are we already doing a little bit better than that? So we got to kind of look at where we're starting and then where do we want to go? How green do we want to be? How green does it make sense for us to go? You know, what is the life cycle of this building? How long do we plan to keep it? Are we looking at changing its use within 5 years, within 7 years? Or is it going to stay with the same use over that whole time? So there's a number of factors to consider. It's difficult to pin down. I can't give you a dollar figure. You know, but 2 to 10% is typically what's used in the industry.
Just along those lines, I think one thing also, there's quite a few reports out there that deal with increased worker productivity and a more healthy work environment, and a lot of kind of intangibles that are hard to put a dollar amount on, but certainly are key to a more healthy work environment. So
that's right. And there are some studies on that you can seek data on to help try and quantify that. But it is important that that aspect be included in the life cycle cost too. The improvement of the worker productivity and how that affects the bottom line of whatever business is operating within that building is very important. It can be very dramatic by things like better indoor air quality, even things like better daylighting. You can look and find a number of studies how better daylighting, even in schools, improves student performance. So it definitely improves worker performance as well.
anyone else up here on the table at this point? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to have a comment or question to Eric? If so, please come up and use the microphone and give us your name, please.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank you for doing this. I think this is wonderful. It really shows you the kind of community we have here in Indian River County, and that we can really be empowered by the population that we have here to be able to make positive change in our community. I only have one point. There was so much information that was wonderful, and everybody was a great speaker. I'm also a member of the Indian River Green Team, and part of the things that we do, we have monthly meetings and we educate people and try to empower them. But the one thing that recently got brought to our attention is that there's a couple of businesses in town that want to have their businesses be more green. They've asked us to come in and kind of survey their offices and see what we can do to help them become more efficient in their on a green life. We're planning on doing that, and that's a free thing that we do for the community. And it came to me also that I know that the solid waste department also has an incentive that a lot of people don't know about for businesses, that if you own your property and you do recycle and do things like that at your entity, that you get a tax credit because you do that. And my request today would be to contemplate a possibility of raising that incentive, because a lot of the businesses want to do these types of things, like bars and restaurants. If they just recycle their glass, that would be a tremendous amount that would help. So if there could possibly be some discussion about some kind of more incentive, besides if you own the thing, that you get that one line off for a tax incentive, I think that would be wonderful, and it would be a good step in a good direction. That's just a comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
And I think we'll have a little bit more of that when we get to the panel discussions. A lot of the folks will be giving examples of what they're doing currently along that. That's a good point to bring up. Is there anyone else in the audience that has a question or comment? Yes, sir.
One of the comments that I have, obviously, government's changed in time. All you all sitting here will be maybe not elected officials in 5 years, but in the Green Coalition, what do you have to make sure that if they get a green designation, that it will be sustained? I noticed you said after every 5 years you have to reapply. Is that part of it?
Yes. Yeah, the provisions of this particular standard for any local government achieving certification, it is good for a period of 5 years, because as the gentleman mentioned, we know lots of things can change over the course of 5 years within a local government. So we would ask them to reapply. It's expected, of course, we're not there yet. We've just certified our first two this past year, so we haven't done any reapplications, but we do expect it to be significantly less labor and documentation intensive to reapply if there hasn't been a lot of changes. The point is just that the Green Building Coalition wants to ensure that all the good green things that were done 5 years ago, they're still being done, or at least the equivalent is still being done in order to retain that designation. In the case of a registered local government that doesn't quite make it there, we do ask that they track their progress from registered to one of the certified levels over the course of 3 years maximum, giving us at least an annual progress update in terms of their activities to move from registered to certified. And if at the end of 3 years they haven't achieved certified, we would ask them to go back, reevaluate, and kind of start from scratch again. So it is time limited.
Is there anyone else? Okay, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. A couple quick housekeeping things. Everybody probably knows the restrooms are located back here towards the east doors when you walk in. Again, Greg Burke, could you stand up, please? Any architects, please get with Greg to make sure you get signed up for CEUs. Wanted to make a comment that a lot of people in here, we're talking about a green government. There's a lot of things that will apply to you as individuals, as a homeowner, as a business owner, just a regular person. And I think if you go to the website, they'll have a lot of information there that you can apply to your own personal activities, just become a more green person and part of the green environment. And we'd also like to point out that the refreshments that were out back, and I believe they're still out there, were sponsored by A.G. Edwards. And there's a little postcard out there if you want to talk about the retirement nest egg, to turn that nest egg into a green nest egg through socially responsible investment. So there's a lot of things we can do, both as local elected officials and you as individuals, to become a more green, sustainable community. So hopefully everybody's picking up on that and start thinking about ways you can change your life. I know this last week we had FP&L come out and do an energy audit of our home, my wife and I. And it's pretty neat. They go through and they basically, it's like a giant fan they put on your front door that sucks all the air out of your house. And they use that, and they can see if your air conditioning duct system is leaking. They can tell if you have poor insulation around your windows and doors, and give you an energy audit. Ours came out that our doors and windows are in pretty good shape. We had a few we got to patch up. but the insulation in our attic was lacking. So for $618, the company came out and blew in new fiberglass insulation, got us up to an R19. FP&L gave us a coupon that day for a $300 discount, so our net cost out of pocket was only $318 to have our insulation upgraded in our house. And if we save $20 a month in the electric bill, we pretty much have paid it off in a little over a year. So there's a lot of programs out there like that. There's a lot of things we can do as individuals to be more green and sustainable, and we will certainly hear more about that as we get through the program. So at this point, we'll go ahead and take a break. Starting with the program again, I did want to point out that in the back of the room there are a couple displays. I know one of them is about a green project being undertaken now, and another display on some of the new types of building materials and things. So next time we have a break or at the end of the session, if you want to go back and take a look at that, I think you'll find it pretty interesting. Next on the program is a presentation on sustainable development issues and green building practices. This is presented by Dr. Jennifer Langwell. She is founder of Trifecta Construction Solutions. Dr. Langwell is a leader in educating the development, construction industries, and home buyers about the benefits of green building and sustainable development. She is an award-winning author and has developed a guide for green residential construction in Florida. She has co-authored the life cycle cost guidelines for materials and building systems for Florida's public education facilities, and she has published numerous articles on green building and life cycle costing. She has led teams in the creation of implementation plans for sustainable programs such as advanced construction waste management, the Florida Green Building Coalition Green Homes Designation Standards, the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED Standards, and the Florida Green Building Coalition's Green Development. With that, please welcome Dr. Jennifer Langwell.
Speaking up here, and as much as I would love to speak back there, my rear end is my own. So I'm going to stand up here so I don't have to move the entire audience. Right to get started, I knew that there was a question previously about the affordability of green building, and I happened to bring with me, because the office ladies are so organized, the Green Home Certification for the Indian River Habitat for Humanity House. So I would like to ask Kelly Brown to come up and just receive this certificate. This is to show that it is a certified green home. And to just show how affordable green building can be. So just a little very, very brief background. I have a lot of ground to cover. My name is Jennifer Langwell. I'm here to talk about sustainable construction and green building. I wear two distinctively different hats, and one of them is on the director of the green building at Florida Gulf Coast University. And we are completely dedicated to education and outreach about green building. And as you heard from Eric, there are many different types and things that contribute to green building. So when I talk about green building, I use these 7 key concepts. So I talk about energy efficiency, indoor air quality, water efficiency, passive design, selection of materials, the construction process, and site and landscape. The second hat I wear is my company, which is Trifecta Construction Solutions, and the university actually pays my company to run the project on campus. And as you have just heard, we work with Habitat for Humanity. So anything from an individual owner, a very small house, to large master plan communities, or regional plans such as Babcock Ranch. We also work with county governments. So we work through the entire construction process to get either owners, individuals, or the industry to understand what is green building, what is sustainable construction, what is sustainable development, how to implement it, and what does it mean and do. What are the benefits? Some of these logos you may have seen before. These are the certifications that exist. Energy Star is one of the most recognized certifications. So this is something from the EPA, and it shows items that are more energy efficient. The second logo is the Florida Green Building Coalition. Eric talked about the local government standard. I will introduce a bit of the land development standard as well as the green home standard. The third logo is the U.S. Green Building Council. Most people, when they've heard of green, have heard of LEED. And LEED is their certification program. It's a national certification program. Florida has Florida-specific certification programs. So if you look at those programs, for example, in LEED, you might see something about steep slopes and or ice dams. In Florida, you'll see things like termite resistance, hurricane resistance, fire resistance. So again, they're specific to local climates and or general enough that they will cover the entire country, so to speak. The fortified standard is an Insurance Institute standard, whereas if you build to fortified standards, you are allowed to get basically insurance reductions. So this is something where we had one home on Tampa Bay. It was a very large luxury home, and their homeowner's insurance was going to be $15,000 a year. By building to the fortified standards, it dropped their insurance rates to $11,000 a year. It cost us $6,000 to make the changes that we need to change. So in just over a year, it paid for itself. Green Lodging, another certification program in the state, and then we administer the certification programs. So this has nothing to do with green building. We're just going to kind of get everyone in the mindset of what it is we're talking about here. But by show of hands, how many of you growing up either walked or rode your bikes to school? By hands. I'm seeing 95%. How many of you guys have kids? I'm seeing 90%. How many of your kids walked or rode their bikes to school? I'm seeing a half a dozen. You know, and again, nothing specific to do with green building. This has to do with our changing society, our changing environment. We just do things differently. I am an engineer. I'm an engineer by trade, by practice. That is what I do. I am not going to convince you that not walking to school is a bad thing. And I'm not going to convince you that you need to change your cultural, because cultural issues are sociological. That's the wrong side of the brain for me. So I'm here to look at what it is we do, how we do it, and how can I make it better. I'm all for societal shifts, but that's not, again, what I tend to push. The other example I had was think about growing up, how many things you had plugged into your bedroom wall, and think about the average college student today, and or high school kid, about how many things they might have plugged into their bedroom walls right now. So again, I may not be able to change the fact that there's a child that has an iPod, an MP3 player, a computer, a boombox, Lord only knows what, plugged into their walls, but I can make that house as efficient as possible so that despite that energy use, we could still have a net zero energy home. So this is my doom and gloom portion of the presentation. This is my, we're all doing really, really bad stuff we need to change. I let other people focus on that because I'm a solution person. So if we look at buildings, we know that buildings consume about 40% of all energy resources. 30% of U.S. buildings have or are developing sick building syndrome. And we know we use over 5 billion potable gallons of water per day just to flush toilets. And again, we have a lot of inherent challenges. Inherent challenges with respect to developing. We have thousands of people coming to the state every week, every month, every year. And we can say close the gates, but our economy is based off of tourism. It's based off of growth. Is there a smart way to grow? Absolutely. So looking at the current conditions we have to deal with, and it could be older infrastructure, it could be dilapidated buildings, it could be agricultural land. And again, when people were farming, they just basically said, what's the fastest way to dry the land so that I can grow the crops that I need, or so I can graze the land. It wasn't, what's the most environmentally friendly way to remove the water from my land? And again, zoning may be an issue as well. And realistically, we don't always have a good plan. The construction industry is somewhat notorious for not always coming up with what many of us think is optimal solutions. And these are pictures from spots in Florida. These are pictures from the east coast of Florida. If you're not big on lawn care, this might be a great community for you. But it would make my skin crawl to live here. And, this is another favorite one of mine, and you know that there's some guy in a bulldozer somewhere that is so proud of himself because he got this job done. He was told clear it, and he cleared it. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying there are other ways, and there may be better ways for the environment. So basically the industry's response to the doom and gloom, as I will call it, is green buildings, sustainable construction, and that's jargon. And we all in the industry call it different things. It could be ecological design, it could be new urbanism, it could be LEED projects. So this is just to help you understand that we call the same thing many, many different names. And a lot of times when I start talking about green building, this is what comes to mind. And more times than not, if I do public charrettes and I deal with the public, there's one or two people in the crowd out of 10 that I talk about green building, and they most definitely think I'm talking about the paint on the building, and I'm not. So the whole point of this is that green buildings don't need to look like this, that they can look like regular homes of any architecture. So in here, there's an affordable house on the left, there's the most hurricane-proof house in the state in the center. The top right is the greenest house certified home by the Florida Green Building Coalition. And while it's popping in my head, I will mention that I know that there are magazines. The first issue of the Florida Green Building Coalition magazine, I believe, are up on this counter. Great source of information. And then the bottom house here is the International Builder Show New American Home. And there are many, many people that will argue with me that there is absolutely nothing green about a house that may be 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. And I will disagree with them. I will say, I completely disagree. You can have a large greenhouse. I would agree that you can't or shouldn't have a house of this size if we're talking about sustainability. And sustainability being that environmental as well as societal and economic. So if you start looking at, are we using too many resources? Are we using too many materials? Culturally, do we have a problem with excess? That again is a sustainable issue. And there is nothing sustainable about two people living in a 6,000 square foot house. However, they came to this builder and said, here's $10 million, build this house. And the builder said, I'm in a profession to make a living and I'm going to build them this house. What can we do to make it more environmentally friendly? We looked at the building envelope, we looked at the mechanical systems. This house uses less energy than a 2,000 square foot house. So that's what we did to make it green. It's healthy, it uses very little energy, it uses very little water. So although we used more resources than we should have to build it because it's large, the operation over its life will use less resources than most people's regular size homes. I just remodeled my home. It's actually in that magazine. It's 2,000 square feet. It's not huge, but I've never had an electric bill over $45. So just keep in mind that you don't have to spend a lot of money and you can save resources. So that's the affordability thing that we talk about, is how can we do this with respect to the life of the buildings. So with respect to green building and noun and verb, again, used interchangeably. So here, a green building is that physical structure at the end of the process. This is a green building. However, we also use the phrase green building as a verb. So the process that we take to get us there. So whether we're relocating trees, whether we are using spray foam insulation, whether we are protecting ductwork during construction to make sure we have a healthy indoor environment, those are the processes that we go through to result in that green building. Same thing with sustainable development. We could have a community at the end of the process that has wildlife corridors, it's a walking neighborhood, it has town centers, it's completely walkable, and then all of the things that we did to get there. So again, on a community scale, we could relocate trees. We could be collecting stormwater from adjacent older sites that don't have the infrastructure to sustain floods. We could be rerouting stormwater into and create and preserve wetland areas and have water flow naturally as it once did into waterways. So some green building programs for the state. Eric put the webpage up at floridagreenbuilding.org. Again, they have home, commercial development, the local government standard, as well as the high-rise standard. So this is a great source of information. If you want to know what you can do, there are checklists, there are standards, download them, take a look at the list. Even if one of the 500 ideas on there sounds good to you, one is better than nothing. The U.S. programs, again, is LEED, or the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED programs, and they have new construction, existing buildings, commercial buildings, developments. So again, usgbc.org, another great source of information. I am not particularly fond of the aesthetics of either webpage. They were put together by engineers for the most part, so they're not pretty because we don't think with that side of our brain. But there is great information. So just good luck, get to it, find it, email someone if you can't, but it's all on there and it's great stuff. With respect to green growing, in 1991 there was only one green building program, and that was in Austin. And currently in the U.S. right now, and actually in the globe, there's over 100 green building programs. Some are local, some are regional, some are national, some are international, but it's a program that we've seen grow massively over time. These are the stats from the NAHB's 06 study, the 07 study. They are out. We just haven't gotten them into the presentation yet. And, taking 400 pages of information and turning it into 4 bullets is more than I can do over this holiday weekend. But they are now calling green building instead of a fad, a trend. And I think most people can agree that it's probably more than a trend at this point in time. In 05, it was $7.4 billion of the construction industry is projected to be $40 to $60 billion by 2010. So they were projecting 06 or 07 to be the tipping point at which at least 50% of all industry is doing something green. I see that being the case now. With respect to growth, this is just the membership of the U.S. Green Building Council. Our membership in Florida has seen the same rise. So the organization was formed in 1996 with 61 members. Their first conference was in 01. It was in Tucson. They had 1,100 members. They had 750 people attend that conference. Last year in Denver, it was over 20,000. So this is a organization as well as a movement that is gaining speed, and it is not slowing down. These, again, are new constructions, LEED certified buildings within the country. If you actually look at per capita, Montana's probably pretty high up there. So it's a little deceiving with respect to the numbers, but, California likes to look good, so they put their little statistic. I see green everywhere. I don't think it's just me, but pretty much in all. Newspapers, magazines, it's hard to pick out one that you don't see something about green in it. And basically the owner benefits are indoor air quality and efficiency. So whether it's energy efficiency, whether it's water efficiency and a cleaner, healthier, more comfortable environment, those are basically the benefits we're looking for. Builder-developer benefits, I would say historically, it was used as a differentiator. I've been doing this for 11 years, and I would say up until about 2 or 3 years ago, that's really what drew most people to this, was it's something new, it's something different. And now, with the slowdown, what I'm seeing is people saying, we need to be doing the right thing when things pick back up again. So I've seen a fundamental shift with respect to the industry. Where things are going on in Florida, I'm on the West Coast and I have a really big mouth. So you can see there's a lot going on the West Coast. Amy knows me. There are people here who know me. They know I'm not shy and quiet as I might appear. But there's quite a bit going on throughout the state. Usually folks from the Panhandle get a little annoyed. They're starting to pick up in the Panhandle though. And again, looking at LEED for neighborhood development, they have 4 main categories. Again, all of the things that we've discussed, the conservation, the preservation, the layout, fall under these categories. The Florida Green Building Coalition happens to have 6 categories. We have protecting ecosystem, creating green circulation, green utilities, amenities, CDRs, as well as education. Education being a key component. Again, all of this information is available on the web. Tons of different ways to achieve points. You would need 200 points for certification, as you would in the current home standard. And this standard works with, this happens to be a 5-acre community in downtown Sarasota, where they did a redevelopment of a site and have 19 single-family homes on it. All the way up, as I mentioned, to Babcock Ranch as an example. So some of the things that we're looking for are required by the counties. And again, they're not required by every county. So things like wetland surveys, wildlife surveys, upland surveys, looking at topo surveys and soil surveys to figure out what is on the site, what needs to be restored and protected. Creating conservation areas and wildlife corridors, trying to cluster the developments to leave open space. Having critter crossings, and most people joke at me because if you can maybe tell in the bottom picture, across the street there's this 1-foot high fence. And it actually goes about 2 feet into the ground, and it's to keep gopher tortoises and things from digging under the fence. But it basically funnels the animals to this critter crossing so that they can safely go underneath the road. Now, you must have light coming into the critter crossing, but everyone jokes that this is like an alligator buffet. Because the alligator sits at the other side and just waits for all these little critters to cross the road. You know, and I'll say, well, you know, alligators are critters too, but it's not an alligator buffet, it's for safety. Looking at conservation in wetland areas, again, conserving them, restoring them, and protecting them. If we can do redevelopment, redevelopment is great. This happens to be Baldwin Park. It was an old military institution. It's now a very sought after place to live in the Orlando area, with lots of parks, lots of open space, lots of waterways. That these are storm water retention ponds, but they've also turned them into a community feature. Again, collecting stormwater from adjacent sites and having dual use facilities. And most builders and developers cringe at the sight of this playground underwater or soccer field underwater. This is just its dry detention. In major storm events, it floods, and it will dissipate within 24 hours. It's designed to do so that you're not breeding mosquitoes. But again, it's something that, you know, during that major storm event, hopefully the kids aren't out there anyway playing. So. Relocating trees, we've seen, protecting trees as well. This happens to be a builder that went from building a slab on grade to doing a crawl space in this instance. If he had done a slab on grade, he would have had to bring in filter. The filter would have smothered the roots of the trees, killing the trees. So he changed the design of his foundation so that he would not harm the trees. Again, tree preservation, we know that it dictates a lot premium for the most part in designing around trees. So this is a community center area. So a lot of times in master plan communities, we may have a large 50,000 square foot clubhouse. And because this area was on the river and they wanted to take advantage of the oak trees, a lot of these oak trees were 36, 42, 48 inches in caliber, old oak hammock. So they opted to basically do the tree location, figure out where the trees were, and then start designing the area around the trees, and start nesting the buildings in the trees so that they, number one, were able to take the shade and the benefits from shading with respect to energy conservation. So this is something that this developer decided to do. They could have picked a big open spot and plopped a big building, but they wanted to create more of a little town center in a village with their walking trails. They looked at the old cow paths and looked how could they use those cow paths to be part of their golf cart paths. So is there a way to use what's already disturbed and make it a part of the community? Green circulation, next category, is looking at basically walkability. Can we keep people out of their vehicle? Yet again, something cultural, not necessarily something an engineer can design into a community. but if we provide trails and we provide shaded areas, maybe people are more willing to walk. Trying to have connections, the new urbanistic design versus cul-de-sacs and creating places for people to put their bicycles help. Looking again, walking trails, boardwalks, planting street trees, and making sure there are multiple connections to neighboring areas. This is one of my favorite communities. It happens to be in Texas. It's 22,000 acres. It's called the Woodlands. When the person started developing this, they thought he was nuts. Absolutely insane, because it was an hour and 15 minutes outside of Houston. And basically now if you live in the Woodlands, you don't go anywhere else. You don't need to, because everything you need is here. There are a lot of corporate headquarters relocating here because there's a span of residential housing that can fit every price point. There's a downtown area, there's multiple ways to get around. These pictures were taken on a Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is one of those downtown walkable community areas with one of the little parks that the kids run through and get all wet in. And I kept telling someone that they needed to put in like a baby gap or something so that the parents had to buy the kids new dry clothes. They thought it was nuts, but that's nothing new. But you know, a lot of people will say you can't have big box stores in these walkable downtown areas. And here's a Borders right across from Tommy Bahamas, which is right around the corner from this streetscape. So if you design it and do it correctly, you can. Green utilities, again, if we can get them underground, they're going to be safer in hurricanes. Low flow irrigation, low flow water, native drought tolerant vegetation. And this happens to be a closing the loop system where WCI actually took their land clearing debris, found a facility that was willing to treat it because you can't just replant exotics or use them as mulch. Amenities being, again, these are pictures of the buildings that were nested in amongst the trees, just so you can see how the community turned out. Lots of parks, and this is a stormwater retention pond. So this may not look like the stereotypical rectangular stormwater retention pond, which we call lakes, lakefront. And trust me, as an engineer, a nice rectangular calculated stormwater retention pond where I can calculate cut fill is a great thing. It's much, much easier than trying to do this. However, as you can see, the amount of wildlife that has returned here is amazing. And this is something where during dry season you don't see that 4 feet of dirt around the lake because there's native vegetation. So as the water fluctuates, it's less obvious. It was a challenge to educate homeowners about why they couldn't have sod up to the water's edge. Because sod up to the water's edge, you have pesticides and fertilizers going into the water. They cause algae blooms. People don't like algae blooms. You have to come and clean up the algae. Where this, because you keep the sod off of the water's edge, you keep the pesticides out, you keep the fertilizers out. So again, it was an education process because some people like the look of a rectangular lake, I guess. I'm not fond of them. But covenants and deed restrictions, again, encouraging green building. The Green Home Certification Program that's out there right now has 8 different categories. What was my time? I looked at you and you were kind of doing something, but I wasn't sure what that all meant. Okay. So Green Home Certification, again, many different categories. Passive design is something that we look at and we say, what can we do to reduce our dependency on mechanical systems? So cross ventilation, overhangs, solar tubes. Looking at changing roof color alone will help you save energy. The lighter you can go, or using a cool roof can reduce your attic temperature significantly. This is a study the Florida Solar Energy Center did. Same house, same orientation, dark charcoal gray asphalt shingle versus a white concrete tile shingle. 38-degree temperature drop in the attic. So just from changing the material and the color. Integrated photovoltaics, the house on the right-hand side here has a 2 kilowatt photovoltaic array. What we did was we wired an emergency circuit. So instead of a backup generator, we wired the refrigerator, the microwave, an outlet in each bedroom, and the ceiling fans to this circuit. So whenever they lost power, they always had the ceiling fans, the microwave, and the refrigerator. So this system also provides 20 to 25% of their power every day. So it's not something that just sits there as a big metal box and is only used when power goes out in a hurricane. This produces power for them every day. We just did another house for the Seminole Indian tribe. She wanted to be basically a zero energy home. Her goal was to limit her use of fossil fuels. So we started with the building envelope, used an insulated concrete form, used a spray foam insulation, the best windows we could, wraparound porches, high efficiency mechanical equipment, and for a 4 kilowatt array, she's going to have a net zero energy home. So right now the state has a rebate, it's a $4 per watt rebate or $4,000 per kilowatt rebate. So sizing this system with a solar hot water heater, it was $51,000. The state is basically providing a rebate, so our total cost will be $27,000. So yes, $27,000 is a significant amount of money, but you never have an electric bill. And in a storm, she's never going to lose power, and she is completely using no fossil fuels. So that was a benefit to her. Again, more photovoltaics, they can be integrated into any type of roofing system, into any type of glass. There's a PV system at USF that is used to recharge their vehicles. Again, the site, you can see we're trying to protect and enhance the site. Planting littorals using pervious materials. I saw in the back there was some pervious, I'm not sure if it was concrete or pavement, but I saw a water bottle and I saw a bin and some material that looked like the top picture here. So it's pervious, whatever it may be. Tree preservation again and energy efficiency, which is my favorite. In Florida, we basically have here's our pie of how we use energy. Most of it goes to cooling. Most people know that. We need to cool our homes. So let's attack that piece of the pie. Here's spray foam insulation. Again, it seals the attic, plus it stops infiltration of heat and humidity. This is one of the 4 major things I did in my house. So I pressure injected foam, I use spray foam, I have a high efficiency air conditioner, I have a programmable thermostat, I have a tankless hot water heater. I did not build some crazy, it was a remodel, so I didn't go crazy. I spent about $7,500 in cost. Pressure injected foams, ICF construction, radiant barriers, these are all other options to reduce how much energy you use. Tankless hot water heaters, masticing your ductwork. You have about 20 to 30% of your AC can end up leaking into your attic because the tape on your ducts loses its stickiness. If you've ever looked or opened an old scrapbook or an old photo album and the tape is no longer sticking, so if you look at something like that, this again is more like a concrete type material that hardens over top of the tape so that you don't have anything leaking into your attic. We know that if a 2,000 square foot house, if you replaced all of your bulbs with compact fluorescents, you could save about $800 per year. A lot of people will say they don't like the look of compact fluorescent lighting or fluorescent lighting. They make warm-coated fluorescents now. It mimics incandescent light. The technology for dimmables is improving, and LED lighting is really the next best thing out there. So a 60-watt incandescent bulb can be replaced by an 11-watt compact fluorescent or a 2.5-watt LED. So if you add up, even in this room, the number of light bulbs that are in here, it would be a significant savings. Looking at, again, these are just some interesting facts. And we know if all U.S. households replaced one light bulb, just a single incandescent bulb with a compact fluorescent, it would be the equivalent of removing 780,000 cars from the road. So that number of cars would stretch from Atlanta to LA. If everyone in Florida replaced one bulb with a compact fluorescent, it would be the equivalent of removing 48,000 cars from the road. So again, it's a small change that has significant impacts. Energy efficient mortgages, something else very few people know about. You build an Energy Star house, you can get more mortgage money. So again, what you need to do is make sure it's certified Energy Star. The banks will loan you more money because they know that you are paying FP&L or whatever power company less. So they know you can afford to pay more on your mortgage. Minimizing water, again, native drought tolerant vegetation. We use most of our water for irrigation. If we look at washing machines, we know that you can basically, from the use of an Energy Star washing machine, save enough water to provide lifetime drinking water for 6 people, to fill 3 swimming pools, to run an Energy Star dishwasher for 43 years every day, assuming it would last 43 years, probably not so much anymore. Again, low flow and dual flush toilets. We know we can save anywhere from 800 to 2,000 gallons if we use a low flow or a dual flush. A dual flush has 2 buttons or 2 levers, and it's press 1 for 1, press 2 for 2. Not complicated. I don't know a more tactful way to say that. I've been trying to work on one, but that's about all I can come up with. We saw the native drought tolerant vegetation. And again, limiting turf. So we know 1,000 square feet of lawn, and that's a patch, 30 feet by 30 feet, a little bit bigger than that, but 30 feet by 30 feet. If we water it 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week, that's 65,000 gallons of water per year, which can fill your average swimming pool 4 or 5 times. So you need a third at most of that water if you're using native drought tolerant vegetation. You really don't need any if you're okay with it looking a little stressed during this time of year, but a lot of people don't want it to look stressed. So again, narrow strips of grass, very bad, hard to water them. And I'm going to buzz through indoor environmental quality quick because I got the, you only have a few minutes, but this is my favorite section. So I saw this on the internet and I thought it was great. It says, imagine breathing air worse than this. And I usually try to pick on people from Atlanta because that's what this reminds me of. But and the punchline was, you already are. So basically, we know indoor air is anywhere from 2 to 10 times more hazardous than outdoor air. We know that most people spend about 90% of their time indoors. We know that asthma rates have increased by more than 100% since 1976. So what happened was in the early 70s, we went through the first energy crisis. That's when Energy Star was created. We started hearing things like we need a tight building envelope, we need an insulated building envelope, and the industry responded and started doing that. At the same time, we went through a polymer revolution. So everything that used to be solid wood or natural fibers became composite, plastic. Look at the tables you're sitting at now. Those may have been wood historically, and now they're particle board with melamine and adhesives. All of that stuff off-gas VOCs. VOCs being volatile organic compounds. VOCs are that new car smell. It's very bad for you. Paints off-gas VOCs for 6 years. What do most people do when they find out they're going to have a child? They go and they paint the nursery. They bring a brand new baby home, plop them in their nursery, and the baby's huffing down VOCs for the first 6 years of their life, and then they wonder why they have asthma. There are no VOC paints, there are low VOC paints, there are no VOC carpets, there are low VOC adhesives. You just have to ask for them. So my absolute favorite is a baby crawling on a carpet and inhales the equivalent of 3 cigarettes a day. From the off-gassing of the carpets, the padding, the adhesives. Hard flooring, much healthier option. Has anyone replaced a carpet? You rip it out, it's like a beach, like a bad New Jersey beach under there. In theory, you would clean a hard floor before it got that dirty. So again, a healthier hard floor. In Florida, we want to cool, we want to dehumidify, and we want to filter the air. Most of us have those little 1-inch blue filters you can throw a golf ball through. They're not really doing a whole lot to collect air particles, and they do make better air filters. They make electronic air filters, they make HEPA air filters, all sorts of different technology out there for better filtered air. Material selection, we had this conversation during the break, and we were talking about bamboo flooring, and bamboo flooring is great. It's a rapidly renewable material. It renews itself every 5 to 6 years. It's a weed. It's going to die if you don't cut it down and use it. but most of it right now is coming from China. So we're taking this material and we are putting it on a large tanker and we're trucking it halfway around the globe. So using bamboo flooring is a great, great product. However, is it worth the fossil fuels to get it from China? And again, that's another social issue. I just bring up the concerns. So these are just some pretty pictures of 100% recycled glass tile, bamboo flooring, cork flooring. It's what I used in my house. Comes from Portugal. But it's nice. And it's sustainably harvested. Reclaimed wood. Looking at eco-friendly materials. Again, these are low off-gassing products. Great grabs is a grab bar that looks like a towel bar. And then construction, of course, we can minimize waste and have a cleaner job site. We mentioned earlier the blower door test and the FP&L giant fan to check for leaks. These are other systems you can use to check for duct leaks, and there's that giant fan on the front door that we were talking about earlier. So the rest are mostly just pictures. I know I'm tight on time. And I'm happy to entertain any questions. I'm just going to flip through these. Oh, no, already yes. Go ahead.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm just pushing a button with my other hand.
My naysayer friends, when I give them the spiel about CFL, say, oh yes, but CFLs have mercury in them.
You are absolutely
And
correct.
therefore, all of that energy savings is offset by the negative impact on the environment. How do I respond to that?
You can respond and say they're starting to address that. So historically, compact fluorescents did not have the quantity of mercury that they currently have. This is something that is starting to be a major issue right now. I was going to try and get you a contact email, but we'll just do that later. The issue is that, again, disposal. But it's the same thing as photovoltaics. Photovoltaics have heavy metals. So it's something that, I can tell you that the University of Florida, we do a lot of reverse engineering there. We work with the Florida Center for Solid and Hazardous Waste Management. The biggest issue we're looking at right now are cell phones. Cell phones and CRTs, the cathode ray tube televisions and monitors, because of the lead in the glass. So it's something that's being addressed. I would recommend LEDs because they give you a better quality of light, they use less energy, but they're more expensive. So, any other questions?
Any questions or comments from the panel up here? My comment was, wow. That was a great presentation and really brought forward a lot of super good ideas and issues. I really appreciate it. I wish I could sit here and hear it again, but I didn't get it all. But any other comments from the panel? Anybody sitting here? No? Does anyone from the audience would like to have a question for Jennifer? Now's the time to ask. We have a great resource here. She's full of information. So, anybody, any questions, comments?
I think I've scared everyone.
My name is Nancy Wood, and I just wanted to compliment you on a very informative and a very excellent presentation. You showed us about a lot of things that we need to inform the population that there are things like that. But the CFL light bulbs, if you simply take them to the dump in the hazardous waste material, they'll be able to dispose of it properly for you. And since they last about 5 to 7 years, it'll probably be a well-themed trip. But I'm very impressed with everything that you have to say, and I just want to applaud you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jennifer, probably the one thing that stuck in my mind was your differentiation between a sustainable house and your example of the 7,000 square foot home and the use of resources, but the fact that it could be a green home and reduce current use of resources and use less energy than a 2,000 square foot home. I think that's a great point to bring out, that everybody, probably heard about Arnold Schwarzenegger. In fact, he's driving a Hummer. You would think, oh, he's not conserving, but he had it modified to run on a biofuel. So I think that also illustrates the same concept between sustainable and then being green. And then we don't have to give up our lifestyles. We don't have to give up that maybe dream home we've always wanted, but we can be green at the same time. So I think pointing that out was a great idea to help us move forward to become a green community. It doesn't mean you have to give up everything. You don't have to give up your lifestyle. You just tweak a little bit, do things a little bit different to be more sustainable. So I thought that was a great point. Jennifer, great, Karen.
Karen is from the New River County School Board. When we look at the school start and end times in the year, are we more efficient to start our schools later in the summer or earlier in the summer and end?
The biggest issue is really the bus routing and the gas use. So, looking at really the O&M side of things and the operation time, and, that really is what drives the ultimate impact and cost. And I can't emphasize enough the fact that, unfortunately, I did tons of research when I worked at UF for the school. And it's one of those things where someone's wearing a pair of pants, and the initial cost budget is in the left pocket, and the O&M budget is in the right pocket, and people forget they're the same pair of pants. So, we may be spending $2 million on something that's going to cost us $5 million a year to upkeep because we're not spending that extra $20,000. So it's really looking at O&M and looking at minimizing resources with the bus routes, and can we combine trips.
So looking at the energy costs of air conditioning is a red herring. We need to look more at the transportation costs.
It's not irrelevant by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something where you have so many students, you can only do so much without messing with the parental, trying to get people to work on time and get teachers to work on time. But minimizing energy use, absolutely. But there are ways through design to do that. So it's something that I think you can look at through the design and the engineering and the selection of equipment, more so than the shift in how you currently operate, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier with respect to, we're not saying make a massive light switch, because we do have the technology out there to really address some of these issues. We just have to know that everything that we spend time engineering and designing to save you money on your air conditioning bills isn't going to be value engineered out because it's not the lowest bid. So that's the biggest challenge.
Thank you.
The last comment I have on this was the other thing that really struck me in Jennifer's presentation was the map of Florida, where you showed the amount of green buildings and development going on, and it was kind of embarrassing to see that almost the entire East Coast had no red or blue dots on it, whereas the West Coast was solid red and blue. So, going back to my original comments, the two purposes for this workshop was one, education, but two is to get the county and municipalities to make a stand to go forward with green sustainability. So I'd like to reissue that challenge now to all the elected officials sitting here, and all you folks out there to push your elected officials, that I think one of the best things we can do for Indian River County is put some red and blue dots on that map. So I reissue that challenge to all of you to go back to your councils and boards and get resolutions to move forward to be a green, sustainable community. I think we need to put that red and blue on the map. So, Jennifer, thank you very much. That was an outstanding presentation. Thank you. Yeah, these seats here. You guys are good. Okay. We're going to move around a little bit, so Joe and Sarah and Ken, I'm going to ask you guys to grab a different seat. We're going to have 4 panelists come up. They'll sit up here at the head table, or the head end of the table, I guess. I'm going to ask each panelist to give about a 10-minute or less talk on what they're doing in their respective departments, and then we'll open up the floor if anybody has any questions or things like that. But go ahead. So why don't you come on up and take a seat. First is Richard Bialowski. Richard is a practicing architect, and he's actively engaged in real estate development for over 30 years. He pioneered the use of non-toxic building materials in the construction of his personal residence in 1987, and this stands as an early model of sustainable, healthy home design. Mr. Bialowski is recently involved in developing the Mandela Club, which is one of the more unique projects in the United States, combining the age-old principles of Vedic, is that right? Vedic? Okay. Vedic architecture with non-toxic, health-promoting construction protocols. Next, we have Kelly Brown, Development Manager for Indian River Habitat for Humanity. As we heard and saw earlier, the Habitat for Humanity just completed the Green Certified Home, and we're looking forward to hearing about that from Kelly. She is responsible for all fundraising activities and became involved with Habitat's first greenhouse through her relationship with the home sponsor, WCI Communities. Simultaneously, Kelly helped form Habitat's Green Team, a committee of volunteers and staff working to reduce, reuse, and recycle on Habitat's construction sites. Susan Olson, Director of Facilities, Planning, and Construction for the School District of Indian River County. Susan has worked in manufacturing, water management, and school planning and construction over the course of her nearly 30-year professional career. She graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in civil engineering. Her present goal is to build a green middle school in which the students of Indian River County can thrive while learning. And our fourth panelist is Himanshu Mehta, who's the Assistant Manager and Director for Indian River County Solid Waste Disposal District. Himanshu is also a graduate of the University of Florida with a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering. He worked for the environmental consulting industry for 9 years prior to joining Indian River County. He's been with the Utilities Department for the past 3 years and has recently joined the Solid Waste Disposal District. So that is going to be our panel. They are all hands-on. All four of them are involved in projects or activities that are doing demonstrated green practices, so we're looking forward to hear from them. Richard, did you want to go ahead and first with your presentation? Okay,
These are the entities that I'm involved with. I'm here today. My business partner, David Eder, is here as well. We both came here in our hybrid cars. I'm wearing a green shirt. We have 5 people working in our company who have taken the Florida Green Building Coalition certification course. One certifier, and Greg Burke, who is working with us on our Mandala Club project, is also a green building certifier. Mandala Club, which we've been working on for some years here, hoping to get through the concurrency hurdle, we think is one of the more progressive and premier green developments in the country in many ways. Mandala Club has a variety of housing types. It's more of a village than a typical subdivision. When we presented to the Planning and Zoning and County Commissions, we showed many laundry lists of things that were included in the project. I'm not going to read them all because obviously with 10 minutes I can take 10 minutes reading each of these. But I think if you just look up, you'll see that there is a significant number of things we did with regard to local impacts and also with regard to global impacts. Global impacts means for us looking at the implications of what we're doing on a larger scale, looking at the implications of the materials we use from the point of manufacture to the point of use. The point Jennifer made about using a sustainable material that comes all the way from China, there's a slight disconnect, and there are value judgments you have to make in that process. Ultimately, for us, though, thinking green, it's a way of thinking. It's not a list of items on the menu. If you think of it as a list of items on the menu, you're going to be right back where we started from with the problems that we face today. The individual and the environment have a very reciprocal relationship. They affect each other. Environmental systems are self-interacting, self-referral systems, and you have to deal with them in a holistic manner. I like to say that green building is holistic building. It's holistic thinking. It's acting in accordance with the laws of nature. And so when we see something like this, we see what is the essence of why we are where we are today. We're relying on partial knowledge, on the knowledge of the parts. In fact, in a world of over-specialization, we focused on those particular aspects of the parts without looking to see how they interact with the whole, or without seeing the meaning of the whole, which becomes clear when we see it. The whole, as we all know, is greater than the sum of the parts. And again, it's a matter of thinking. It's a matter of tuning yourself to think what this means to your life, and realize that your life is connected to everything around you. It's connected to everyone else. It's connected to the entire cosmos. This is a discussion I'd love to go deeply into if we were discussing the Vedic aspects of Mongol Club, because those ancient principles of design are really what tie all of this together. I got interested in green building when I was in college, but the first manifestation of this for me was back in 1987 when we built a house for ourselves in Santa Barbara. Back when I built that house, I think it placed me squarely on the lunatic fringe for being concerned about non-toxic building. But 10 years later, even in my own community, I was considered a prophet, and I had probably done 30 consultations and 15 lectures on green building. It took a while to catch on. It was harder to do that. And I paraphrase a quote here that was in this article. Basically, most of us are concerned about what we eat. We get exercise. We're concerned about staying healthy. And then, you stick your head in a polyester pillow for 8 hours and wrap yourself in a stay-pressed sheet that's soaked in formaldehyde, and there's a fundamental disconnect there. This is the house we're building today. It's a beta test of Mongol Club. There were so many things we had never done before that we're doing in Mongol Club that we felt we really ought to try it in one time. It's a lot easier to do this in 2007 than it was in 1987. There are so many more products available, so many more protocols, so many more people who are familiar with the technologies. This is what we were trying to avoid. Everybody knows this term, sick building syndrome, but you've got to do something about it, not just know about it, because it affects you in your house, not just in the state office building. The feeling of spending a long time in a room and feeling like you're falling asleep, it's not necessarily because you're bored. It may simply be the carpet or any number of other things in that room. So in our home, we worked hard to avoid those issues, creating healthy housing, breathable walls using AAC block. A lot of these materials we have on display in the back, and David and I are happy to tell anyone about them. Sealed atics that Jennifer talked about. Going back to AAC blocks, a wonderful material that's energy efficient. It's a breathable wall. We particularly focused on electrical design to reduce electromagnetic field pollution, non-toxic paints, no formaldehyde in doors and cabinets, whole house water filtration, high level of water filtration, photocatalytic filters in the air conditioning system, energy recovery ventilators with fresh air, all hard surface flooring, magnesium oxide cement board in lieu of paper-faced gypsum board. And for those of us who have been through a few hurricanes, you know how quickly paper-backed gypsum board can get moldy and how dangerous that is. Another value judgment, that MGO board all came in a container from China, but we're working with a number of the manufacturers who are in the process of setting up a plant on the Texas-Mexico border, and half the cost of the MGO board is in the importation. So hopefully that will be a more readily available product in the Superior. It is the drywall of the Far East. An emphasis on detached garages, or where they're not detached, ventilation in the garage, because when you drive your car into your garage and the motor's running, the house is going to suck that pollution right in. Ozonated or saltwater pool filters, borate-treated wood in lieu of toxic-treated termite programs, minimizing pesticides in the landscape. There you see AAC block walls with fiberglass rebar. The fiberglass rebar was part of the protocol for minimizing electromagnetic field pollution. Here you see the MGO wall board, our AAC blocks going up. These blocks provide insulation. They don't insulate they don't have a layer of insulation between the cool space and the thermal mass of the block, so they're far more efficient and they're breathable. If you get water inside an AC block wall, it basically migrates out. It isn't trapped at the vapor barrier and basically create a petri dish for growing mold. EMF pollution and radio frequency pollution is something we pay a lot of attention to. I'm on the other side of the line here with a lot of people on compact fluorescence. Not only does it have the mercury disposal issue, but compact fluorescence put radio frequency spikes in the current. If we had more time, I could tell you some interesting anecdotal stories about EMF pollution, but it definitely affects all of us. Our experts say that it's the #1 health problem in the world. I figure they're exaggerating. What if it's only 2? What if it's only 3? What if it's only 4? It's a very, very serious thing. So we eliminated all dimmer switches, no compact fluorescence, solar photovoltaics. We're working with some folks on eliminating the issues that come from the inverters. Can be fixed, but that is an issue. No plasma TVs, cordless phones, minimizing steel reinforcing, no copper water pipe, and stepped sine wave uninterruptible power supply. We're using MC cable to shield our wires, metal boxes, testing for problems. This is the key thing. You know, if you basically follow the NEC, the National Electric Code, everything will be fine, but you got to test it because electricians make mistakes. We are working with some valve biology consultants. Valve biology is a German science that's been in the forefront of healthy housing for years. We have a consultant who's going to come in and test at the end and make sure we got it right. Capacitor filters to take the radio frequency problems out of the current. We've been working with some experts. There's a filter and a meter in the back there, fiberglass rebar. We took this very, very seriously. Energy efficiency, low E, impact resistant windows. One company we know right now makes those, Florida's Best. A number of companies have not only told us that they don't make it, they tell us it's absolutely impossible to do, which is puzzling since we went down and saw them do this at Florida's Best. AAC block walls, the highest possible SEER rating AC units we can use, LED lighting, because as long as we test that with this meter we have, some of them have problems, most of them are clean, they're more expensive, but they avoid the problems of compact fluorescence, sealed attic, open cell phone installation, Energy Star appliances. In our house, we think that we're 40 or 50% more energy efficient than normal homes. And that brings me to 2 points I want to bring up that relate to public policy. I couldn't miss the chance. Number 1, with a little bit of help from the friend at the Rocky Mountain Institute and from Rob Vieira at Florida Solar Energy Center. If you have a 2,400 square foot home, it takes about 4 tons of air conditioning. In a year, that uses 3,300 kilowatts of electricity, or 9 kilowatts per day over 1 year. If you're 40% more energy efficient, you can save 3.6 kilowatts a day of energy. For comparison purposes, that's 12.96 megajoules of energy. If you take a 3-mile round trip to the store in your car at 30 miles per gallon, you use 1/10 of a gallon, and that's 13 megajoules of energy. So the conclusion is, one additional 10-minute trip in your car negates making your home more energy efficient. Scary. Reducing car dependence, therefore, is an important aspect of saving energy. And if you take reducing energy expenditure seriously, you can't ignore the patterns of development. Sprawl, I call it sick planning syndrome, sprawl kills. Joel Hirshhorn, who wrote this book, says that our planning and building technologies are about to pass cigarette smoking as a major killer in the United States. Question is not, should we build? Growth is inevitable. It's how we build. Andres Duani says the problem's not the profit motive. Profit's always been a driver in this country. The issue is the pattern. As long as the pattern was the compact, walkable, and diverse neighborhood, it would continue growing and did so for 250 years. When the pattern changed after World War II, it became unsustainable. So the solution, back to the future, compact, walkable communities. Point number, in Montbello Club, we had, even though we're not mixed use, we had again a list of things to reduce car dependence. Just encouraging walking in the community. and things like high-speed fiber optic communications to allow people to telecommute. Second point, why solar photovoltaics don't work in Florida. Well, they do work, and they are used, but why don't we use them universally? It's a really simple answer, and it isn't the lack of sunshine. It's only a 3-letter answer, and in spite of the help that they gave Peter, that's the answer. The reason, no net metering. It's a big issue. Net metering means that when your solar collectors are generating power and you're not using all the power, you're selling it back to the utility at the same price that you're buying it from the utility. And that's the single piece that would make solar energy work in Florida photovoltaics. No net metering. If you think it's crazy, impossible, short-sighted, stupid, and wrong, or all of the above, make sure you let your elected officials know, because FP&L is not going to change this on their own. It's going to take some prodding. So I conclude with 2 words of wisdom. For those of you who are optimistic and energetic and willing to take the next step to make Union River County one of the leaders in the country, if not the state. A quote I've always loved by Buckminster Fuller: we're called upon to be the architects of the future, not its victims. For those of you who are a little less energetic and a little more pessimistic, from Woody Allen, more than any other time in history, mankind faces a crossroads. One path leads to despair and utter hopelessness. The other to total extinction. Let us pray that we have the wisdom to choose correctly.
Thank you. I do want to point out, I believe the city of Myrtle Beach does have a net metering program, and I believe there is one house that is hooked up online now for net metering. That's right. Yeah. So, well, FPL is not doing us very good, but the city of Myrtle Beach has stepped up and has that program. So, Kelly, would you like to go next? Great.
To spend one slide briefly telling you what Habitat for Humanity is all about. I'm sure most of you know, but just in case. We are a developer and builder of simple, decent homes for hardworking low-income families in our county and actually around the world. Our families have to demonstrate 3 basic requirements. They have to have a need, so they're in substandard housing, they're overcrowded, or they have a cost burden. In many cases, all 3. They also have to have a willingness to partner in the form of sweat equity. That's when you see our homeowners out building their own home. And then finally, they have to make payments on a no-interest loan. Our current efforts stem from the very mission that we're here to achieve. We wanted to try to see if we could reduce the utility bills and increase the durability of our homes for our homeowners, as well as to see whether or not we could build green in a cost-effective manner, seeing as we rely on donations and grants to finance our mission. And today we'll talk about the green home that we did, as well as our green team and our home center store and how that fits into that pilot project. Some statistics on the greenhouse that we did recently complete. We started it on September 9th of 06 and finished up on March 3rd, so it's definitely a very new project for us. Our sponsor was WCI Communities, and thankfully they came forward to offer the funding for the house, as well as to help hold our hands as we went through this process. We also had a lot of help from some of the entities that you see here today. The Florida Solar Energy Center helped us quite a bit, as well as Trifecta Construction Solutions. The results of this project are that we received our first Energy Star rating on one of our homes. We also achieved the Florida Green Building Coalition Green Home Standard, as you've heard about today. And we became, surprisingly actually, the first green habitat home in the state of Florida, which was very exciting. But you see there, it under construction, as well as the family. Coincidentally, the family, Elfrida Allen, she's actually an employee of the public school system. She helps clean up our schools. So it's kind of a neat thing to address here today when we're talking about green government. As you've heard today, we did receive a number of points for things that we were already doing, and we were pleasantly surprised to find that some of the things we currently did were actually green and we never do it. Some of those things included a modest size. Obviously, we do build simple, decent homes. Our homes are about 1,050 square feet, So that right there got us a number of points because our footprint is much smaller than many homes in our area. We looked for a home specifically that had a hip roof. At the time we had a number of house styles, but that's the most hurricane resistant we came to find out, and therefore we did utilize that in the green home design. We also had a centrally located hot water heater, and so the water didn't have to travel as far to go to the showers and the sinks, and so that was considered green. We do not include irrigation systems in our building, so obviously if you use less water, you're more green. We use native landscaping, so things that are drought resistant and native to Florida. We don't use carpet in our homes. We currently use tile, and that was a positive per the checklist as well. We don't use double pane windows, but what we have been doing is tinting windows that are most susceptible to receiving a lot of sun during the day. So that was something that Florida Solar Energy Center wasn't even really sure was going to be really green, but when they tested our home, found out that's something that was working really well for us, and they recommended we keep doing that. We also added an Energy Star refrigerator. We did have some other Energy Star appliances we were utilizing, but not all of the appliances were Energy Star. And there were some more things, but that gives you a good highlight of what we already had in place. We did add a number of green features. The first was the isomine spray foam installation, and that's the photograph you see there. You saw that earlier today as well, and that allowed us to close up any possible air leakage that's coming out of the ceiling for the home and actually makes that as good as conditioned space. We also upgraded our HVAC unit, and we took on a variable speed air handler with duct mastic. And we added an Energy Star washer and dryer with moisture sensors so that when the clothes are dry, it stops as opposed to just running because of the time setting. We also added a tankless water heater. We did purchase low VOC interior paint, and we also used low VOC tile adhesive. We did put in complex fluorescent light bulbs, and we used the environmentally friendly mulch that you saw Jennifer speak of earlier. That's the WCI label where they're using the waste essentially from when they do land clearing. Most people are really concerned and interested in what we spent to do this, and this is a chart which has a lot of information, but the bottom line is we spent about $4,000 extra to make these improvements in the home. And that's something that we are looking at now as to whether we want to utilize all of the features that we incorporated into this home or just take some of them. So where do we go from here? We have eliminated our home design with a gable roof because we did learn that wasn't as hurricane resistant. We've started to do simple things like staple the batted insulation to the face so that when you walk into the home, you actually can't see the frame. That makes it more energy efficient because there's less of a chance for air leakage. So we have volunteers helping us to do that. We started using the radiant barrier plywood on the roof. We purchased that already on the plywood, as you can see in the photograph. And that's about $4 extra a sheet. So we estimate it's about $160 extra per house. But we do have our construction supervisors telling us that it's making a huge difference even when they walk in the house during the day. They can feel that it's not as hot in there when they're working. We also are trying for an Energy Star rating on our homes. We have a partnership with Florida Solar Energy Center, and they come out and test each of our homes to try to see if we can get to that designation. We are not at the point where we've decided to go green on all of our homes, but we are evaluating that. As we go into our new subdivisions, we'll be looking at what techniques we learned and what worked and didn't work and how we want to take those forward. You've heard our green team mentioned. Simultaneously to this greenhouse effort, we also started a green team. And we pulled together a lot of our volunteers and staff. It really was a volunteer-led and initiated effort, and we were just there to kind of work with them and make sure that it happened. We have about 15 members now. You can see one of those members there with the t-shirt. We have t-shirts where folks to encourage people to take up some of the recommendations that we've made and the recycling efforts that we have in place. We meet monthly and we discuss things like our building techniques, our waste reduction strategies, and our recycling efforts. We had a kickoff on Earth Day, and we put up a number of these signs that you see on the right of the slide. The word that's missing there, it says don't throw cash in the trash. So we've decided to take the approach that we think we can save a lot of money by not being so wasteful, by recycling and scrapping items that are able to be rarely paid for, actually, some of the metals that we use on site. And so we're trying to encourage our volunteers and our staff in that way. So we clearly indicate on the sign what they're able to recycle or scrap or sell in our home center store. We did this on Earth Day, as I mentioned, and we have green prizes and green snack foods as well. So we're hoping that this is a good start for us, and we'll take them into our next subdivisions as well. The items that we do recycle on the site now are aluminum cans and plastic bottles. The items that we sell in our store on US 1 are 2x4s and the corresponding measurements as well. Cedar, corner bead, drywall mud and unopened buckets, drywall tape, Luan, and plywood. And since 2006, our store has already raised about $10,000 in scrap revenue, and that's not to mention the other things that we're selling there that are reused as well, which is another effort of ours to recycle and save materials going into the landfill. The items sold as scrap, we sell bent nails, edge, fascia, flashing, rods, wire, and then you also see here, it may look like he's throwing away a washing machine, but actually we take items that we can't sell that don't work, and we pile them onto a trailer and we take them to the scrap facility here in Bureau, and we get paid for those. So it works out quite well for us and saves us on dumpster fees, as well as supporting our mission. That's about all we have. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today and be happy to take any questions.
Four panelists are done. So Susan, did you want to give us a summary of the school?
Well, this is my green is good. It's simple. I can remember it. It's very straightforward. But others have done better. So let me quote from this guy that I like. He's a columnist for the New York Times. He did this great show on TV. Probably saw it a couple of weeks ago on the Discovery Channel called Green is the New Red, White, and Blue. And he has really espoused that idea. And I took this quote from his program. And it's really three important components that I think you have heard an awful lot about today. Designing, living, and working. Three different things, but all of them you can do green. And he says that's the most patriotic, capitalistic, and far-sighted thing that we can do for our kids and our country. That just warmed the cockles of my heart. I thought that was great. And I said, you know, that's right. I have a responsibility to my country and my children and the children for whom I build facilities to be green. So I signed up right then and there. So since the next project that we've got coming is a middle school, with a lot of encouragement from the folks within the system, I called up the architect and said, well, you've been chosen to build a school, can we do this green? And it took them about a millisecond to say, absolutely. We are LEED certified. We have done this before, we will do it again. And then we started designing it. Now, what is a green school? Well, it's basically the things that Shingle Schultz are like. Natural buildings that are basically efficient with natural resources, helping our learning environments. We heard about a little of that earlier. Make green design a part of the educational experience. Now, there's a novel idea. I kind of think that's that holistic, it all works together. If you're going to build a green school, then by golly, those kids ought to know about it as you go along and make it part of their education. And of course, the socioeconomic status. Poor people can be green too. That's a novel concept. So I think there's a lot of reasons that we do it, but those are the primary ones that made sense to me. So all the things you've heard about today, we're going to incorporate natural light, smaller building footprints. That's a new concept. We went and talked to the kids to kind of do a little focus group thing with a leadership group at Sebastian River Middle and said, what do you want to see in this building? And the first thing they said was, we want it to be secure. The second thing they said was, we want, and then they talked about all those things, natural light in the classrooms. We should be able to go some part of the day without turning the fluorescent lights on. Good idea. The low VOC products, we talked about the asthma thing. Well, if the kids are spending most of their day in that classroom, I think we owe it to them. The plantings, of course, natural, drought tolerant, low flow water fixtures. Not very complicated, fairly simple. Now, what have we done in the past? Let's talk about design, living, and working. When we designed schools years ago, we've been doing this for about 6 years, we incorporated this thing called thermal energy storage. The folks who started this, that worked in the maintenance department, weren't thinking green. They were thinking money. Well, I guess that's green. But they were thinking, how can we save money? Because there's never enough money within the school district budget to do a project the way they'd like to do it. FPL had these great programs where they would basically subsidize you to do this. And that's a picture of one of our units that we have in Thompson Elementary. How does it work? It's very simple. During the day, the air conditioner runs, but it's running partially on air that has been cooled by ice. At night, when nobody's there, thermal energy storage makes ice. It's stored in those tanks, and during the day, it helps basically limit the amount of air conditioning that we're using because we use chillers. Now, in addition to that, FPL puts you on a different rate structure because you're saving them energy. So all the way around, it's a win-win situation. Does it cost a little more on the front end? Absolutely. Does it pay for itself within about 2.5, 3 years? Xeriscape, we know about that. Now, we have a lot to learn about xeriscaping. You know, we talk about it so blindly. We put xeriscape in a different alternative, and it all died. So obviously we missed something somewhere along there. I don't think you can plant native drought-tolerant plants and then not water them at all. So we had to replace those, but we're learning as we go. So that's obviously something we're going to do. Not only are we going to do it, but we're going to learn how to do it better. That's a picture of some of those plantings. And the ones in the back, where you can see where they used to have these nice, tall plants, they're all died. The North County Bus Compound. We have buses that go all over the county. In fact, we have a route that actually goes out practically to Neho Junction. They all have to come back to the 41st Street Bus Compound. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense if about half of your fleet is going north and half of it's going south. So we did a little analysis and found out that we have a greater number of buses going a little bus compound where they can come back there. And at first, it's basically going to be an asphalt parking area behind Liberty Magnet, or Treasure Coast, what used to be Liberty Magnet. Eventually, we're going to put in some fuel depots so they don't have to drive back. We talked about, the trip to the store, how that depletes all your energy resources. We think we have only begun to plumb the depths of saving money, energy, being green by doing things like the North County Bus Compound, which isn't very expensive. But let's get down to brass tacks. You expect us to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So the first thing people always ask is, what's it going to cost us to be green? And I turn that around and say, can you be green and save money? And some of the things that we're trying to do in order to do that, the state is getting in the green surge, and they're giving money. They have three, depending on the size of your facility, they have 3 grants that they're going to give to pay the difference between normal construction and green. We're going to go after one of those with help from the architect, who obviously knows a lot more about this at this point than we do. The lighting that we've just installed in the first part of Vero Beach High School's renovation is going to reduce energy consumption by 50%. And that's even before we committed to be green. It was just the smart thing to do. Recycling renovation, they get to get new furniture. What happens to all the old stuff? Well, usually you see it piled up in a dumpster by the place where the trash gets picked up. Press Journal takes a picture of it and makes a big stink about the fact that we are not being very resourceful. Well, we took that to heart because we didn't want to see that picture in the newspaper. Rented a bunch of containers because you got to get everything out of the building before you demo it. And we're working with every school in the system, every food service element in all the schools, and saying, come see what we have, see what you can use. We want to recycle this stuff. We don't want to throw it away. It's perfectly usable. If it's not, we'll find another way to recycle it. But recycling, I've been a believer in recycling since my daughter was in the 3rd grade and I made the mistake of throwing a Coke can in the garbage. I'll never do that again. We learned about that in school. And the other thing we've done is we started looking at flooring. First we got rid of carpet because, of course, hurricanes and carpet don't go together. But then I started thinking about this BCC. It's cheap on the front end, But by the time you put 6 coats of that wax that has those unhealthy chemicals in it, and you have to do this a couple of times a year, it's a lot of labor, a lot of money and maintenance. We're going to do away with that. Not to mention the fact that BCT is a petroleum-based product. We're finding new flooring products. Cost a little more on the front end, but they're made with all natural materials. So that over the long haul, you don't have to spend that money on maintenance. It's healthier for the kids. It just makes sense to do that. So no more of those little tiles in the classroom. And I'm glad to see that we're going in that direction with absolute support from our maintenance department, who thinks it's a great idea. But what's the bottom line? Our core business is pre-K to 12th grade education. So what is education's role? We talked a little bit about education in the second presentation, but that was educating grown-ups. What about the kids? We have to add curriculum that teaches principles of green design, living and working, like Tom Friedman suggested. We have to involve students in the design and construction of these new facilities because that reinforces the concepts when they actually see it happening. More importantly, we have to challenge ourselves to find more and better ways to be green. We've just begun to plumb the depths. Sometimes we make a mistake. We'll learn as we go along. And then the creativity in our youth will also go a long way. I've learned more from these kids in the last couple of years about how to be green than from just about anything else. But here's really, I think, the importance of sessions like this. Indian River County getting behind green further reinforces this education to our youth. When their parents hear about what we're doing today and talk to them about it, when we talk to each other, when the school board talks about it, and they are going to do their resolution, that's going to filter down to the kids. So I think workshops like this are incredible. And Peter, thank you for doing this. It was well timed, and maybe we will get a little tiny dive on the East Coast as a result of this. Because we are definitely ready to design, live, and work green. And thank you, Anna.
My name is the Solid Waste Department, and to mention I've been with the Utilities Department for the last 2 years. And as part of the committee, Sustainable Committee, and also as a staff member, what I wanted to do was kind of jump right in and take a look at this government standard and look at the 2 departments that I've been involved with and kind of take a look at a scorecard, if you will. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail of the spreadsheet that was mentioned earlier. As mentioned earlier, it's a user-friendly Excel spreadsheet, and what I find about it, it's going to allow us to quickly start the process, evaluate ourselves, manage the process, and apply for the certification. What I like about the spreadsheet, and I'll go into a little more detail on the 2 departments, is it's easy to start identifying the criteria and what's applicable to our local government because the standards are organized in terms of generic functions of the various departments. It quickly allows the department to evaluate what are the maximum points that are applicable to us versus the possible points that are out there. And what it also does is it helps us manage what criteria are achieved, what needs to be done to bring our government towards compliance with the standard. And the Excel spreadsheet, supporting documentation, and for the county, based on population, it's a $4,500 fee. It's all put together in the application of the certification. For the solid waste disposal district, there's about 7 categories, and out of that, there's a point system on different criteria. And for solid waste, we're looking at a maximum possible points of 17. First criteria: reduce local government solid waste. Here's the 7 categories there, and 7 criteria. Each one having a maximum of 1 point, and I just want to quickly kind of go over this. If I took me more time to do the presentation slide than to actually go through the spreadsheet. Spreadsheet's it's a lot quicker. Become a partner in the EPA Waste program. It is applicable to Indian River County. Currently, we're not in that program. It's a voluntary, free program. It's a matter of us just staying on board. What it's going to allow us to do is again, more information, tools to help us, and ultimately to save money on the things that we're doing. City countywide chemical hazardous collections. This is applicable to us, and we're already doing it. We have 5 collection centers. We have a hazard waste center at the landfill as well. So this is something we can take credit for. Operate a public reuse store swap shop. What we do here is a partnership with Habitat and what they're doing, keeping it beautiful. This is where we can take a credit in what's going on in the county to make things available. Construction and demolition separation for recycling at the landfill. This is what's currently being done in our department. Offer recycle payback to the community. This is through Habitat, through CURB, and also we do have that at our landfill. The next item, landfill gas recovery. It is applicable to the county. Currently, we're on a voluntary basis. We're collecting the gas, okay, and we're flaring it right now. What we're about to go to is a request for proposal out to actually look into a gas to energy project. And so, as we move forward in the process, I see that 0 becoming a 1. That is a direction that the county is moving toward. Develop a disaster waste management plan. This is in place. This was vital for the hurricanes that we had, where we were able to direct the different debris material throughout the county. Monitor and track green building, curbside recycling for homes and businesses. Again, this is something that we offer to our residents. It's something that we're doing right now. Monitor and typing amounts of material entering the landfill. Everything that goes into the landfill is tracked, and again, we can take credit for this as well. The next category, preserve and enhance habitat. It's a closed landfill management. One of our first cells is closed, and so there is an ongoing management of that cell. Local business incentives and regulations. Earlier was mentioned about businesses and the incentives there for solid waste reduction strategies. We could do better, but it is available right now. The next item, mandatory recycling for C&D debris for home and businesses. This is applicable, but currently we don't have a mandatory program, so that's just something to keep in mind. We may not be able to achieve that point. Minimize solid waste generation. Volume-based special rates. This is currently not in our ordinances to do that, so we do not have a volume-based or special rate system. Offer mulch yard to the waste community. This is something we've discontinued with the greening going on, with a lot of termite issues and things like that, providing it for free. Community education, teaching recycling. We do that again through CURB, keeping it beautiful, and our website. Develop education programs for solid waste management. Again, that is available. And staff education, customer surveys. We've done that in the past. Recently, we have not sent out a customer survey, but that's something that the county could do and take credit for that. A quick summary looking at this of what's possible points that are for solid waste, what's applicable to our department. There's about out of 17 points, there's 14 that are applicable. We can already take credit for about 11 of them. It's about a 79% factor there. Moving on, what I wanted to quickly do is, instead of going through all the categories in the interest of time, is also look at the utility department. Similar fashion, out of the maximum 18 points there are about 17 that are applicable to us, and we already can take credit for about 11 of these. And again, a 65% factor there. Again, I mentioned the different levels, silver, gold, and platinum. Again, I've only looked at the 2 departments, but we're already doing a lot of these things already. And so the benefits of the certification is that it's going to allow the local government to take pride and credit for existing green practices that we're doing. It's going to allow us to get a roadmap to a sustainable county and allow us to be a green role model for the rest of the community. In conclusion, what I wanted to do is just talk to you about the spreadsheet tool and kind of jump in here, and I feel that it's a user-friendly tool. It's going to allow us to kind of get started with it, evaluate all the different criteria, manage it, and apply for the certification in a timely manner. Documentation is going to take time and effort, and as part of this committee, we recommend, and what we've seen other communities do, is a robust, green, sustainable website. where we're able to document this information and communicate this information to the public. And it's going to be a great asset in getting the certification for the county. And that's it. One of the presentations, I think it's great that we can see real life examples of people and leaders in the community who are already doing things to be a green and sustainable community. So that's a great first step. Obviously, we have a lot of work still to go. We have a little bit of time left before our scheduled ending. Is there anyone, well, first on the front table here, any of the officials have any questions for any of the panelists or comments? If not, is there anyone from the audience that would like to ask a question, comment, or speak? Yes, ma'am. Would you come up and identify yourself and use the microphone?
Good morning. My name is Christina Turner. I'm a resident of Indian River Estates. And we're very proud that we've already won 2 honors, one from the county and one from the Chamber of Commerce for our volunteer recycling, which we call not to be confused with keeping beautiful, but we call it beyond the curb for the sea. We recycle office papers and shredding from staff and residents, and all glossy magazines and catalogs. And in the first quarter of this month, we recycled 4,000 pounds. This will escalate as the year goes on, and it gets to its point in the fall, when all the fall catalogs come out and the Christmas catalogs. We do this as a volunteer service because it is not done by the county routinely. We wish that it was. Even the hospital, I know, has millions of tons of stuff that should be recycled, and it isn't done there. I don't know if the public library does it, but most people have to take their stuff to the convenience stations, I think they're called now. And I understand that they're not separated completely there. They're discouraged when they find that their magazines are thrown in among the newspapers. Newspapers are done anyway. We have our rooms that are provided by Indian River Estates for aluminum cans, glass, plastic, and newspapers. And the other things we do voluntarily, we used to, and also we pay to recycle all our corrugated board. And we have tons of that from the provisions, the move-ins, and people. And we appreciate the service, but we wish there was more. There used to be, and it has dropped less recently. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the audience that has a question or comment? Yes, ma'am.
I just had 2 things. One, I
think... You can identify yourself.
My name is Billy Wagner. And if anybody could tell the building industry to figure out a way to integrate something into the glass windows to prevent bird fatalities. I'm sure there's stickers you can put on that you can't see them, but the birds can. You know, something about their eyesight, because some people don't want something on their glass. And the other thing is, Mr. Mata, could we have an annual electronics recycling day? Other counties have them, but they won't allow you to bring anything from another county. And I'm sure everybody has tons of cell phones, computers, printers, all kinds of stuff laying around in their garage. We really, really, really need that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Me again, Nancy Wood, and I'm very familiar with Kerr's recycling program, but I don't know if the community is, and I'd be happy to give you the information, but I don't always be up here making comments instead of asking questions. So would any of you like to do it? Okay, the Reuse Exchange Center is located currently in Sebastian. It's in the city municipality building. And you can go there. It's open on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you can get whatever you want free there. They collect a lot of stuff. It started back in 1991 at the Public Works Building in Vero Beach, and it's grown over the years, and it is available for everyone to come. A lot of people just don't know it's there. And when he mentioned it, I wanted to make sure that the community is aware of it as well. If you look up in the phone book under Keep Indian River Beautiful, and it's called the Reuse Exchange, you can go in. They're always looking for volunteers on Tuesdays, and on Thursdays they're open between 10 and 3 p.m. and you can go in there and get all sorts of stuff. Really, it's a free garage sale, and I would encourage the community to go. If anybody would like more information about that, I'm sure it's attainable, and I'd be happy to help you with it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Gross with the Indian River Green Team, and we have been thinking about how wonderful it would be if the events like the chili cook-off and all the events we have in town, if there were recycling bins set up for all that trash that's being thrown up for the bottles and cans. And also I have a question to ask. I don't know if anybody knows the answer. We've been researching biodegradable products for events that come in different cups and plates and all that kind of thing. There's corn products for bags and things like that. I wonder if Sarasota and those places have a commercial compost, because I think this is something that is happening in California, and we could have things like that at our events. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I think one thing that's very clear with what we're hearing is a lot of great ideas out there, and it's kind of a matter of consolidating all those and educating and organizing them so we can start implementing a lot of these things. Some of those ideas, since we do have some of the elected officials, like the chili cook-off and recycle bins, say Mabel is here, or Ken, get with them, get their card, give them your card so we make sure we follow up and help get that done. It's one of the reasons why we did this with all the municipalities present here, so they could hear these ideas, hear these comments from the community. So please make sure you contact one of them before we're done or near future. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Please make sure you identify yourself when you come up.
I'm Roy Bunnell. I'm the Executive Director for the Florida Green Building Coalition, and we are so pleased to be a sponsor of your event here. When we went after the grant funding from the state to support this type of workshop, what you did here today is exactly what we envisioned. Bringing together the government people, the development people, the builders, the realtors, the community, to come together, to start working together to improve the environmental quality in their community by developing and building green and developing sustainability. I want to compliment you on what you have done here today. And it's wonderful that you have videotaped this, and it's going to be broadcast, so the rest of the community will have opportunities to see this as well. My hat is off to you. Thank you so much for doing this. I would also like to make a suggestion. You're at a very critical point here. You're going to have a coordinator to help you through this process. One of the reasons that Sarasota County has become such a showcase for green building and sustainable development and green local government is because they went a step further, and they actually set up an office of sustainability. And they have a small staff who works to constantly integrate green sustainability across the county. And I would encourage you to look at that, their model, talk with them how they did that, because that might be a long-term goal for you as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy Offit, Treasure Coast Builders Association. I think it was a wonderful program. We're very glad to have so many of our members here participating and in listening in the audience. The Florida Home Builders Association is a partner with the Florida Green Building Coalition. Many of our building practices, the best methods, employ what we've seen today in green building. Many of the building codes speak to energy conservation, landscaping practices, encourage deflection of heat, and we're very mindful and supportive of new techniques that can help us as we create a more livable community. We in the Treasure Coast Builders Association have participated in events throughout the Treasure Coast workshops in all of the counties, and we're very glad that we are establishing a Treasure Coast Green Building Council to encourage our members to become aware of more things that they can do. Our membership is very diverse. It's everything from architecture, pest control, building materials, bankers. Many of our people are here, as I said, in the audience. So we are very supportive of incentives and initiatives. We fall short a bit on mandates from government. That's our platform. And so we're very glad to have the opportunity to prove that we're all in this together. Thank you.
One last comment, and I'll need to wrap up.
So you just can't keep us down. Also, about this. I'm Susie Sumko with Building Staff and Marketing Group, and it's so exciting to see people from all different facets, from the utilities and building and schools and the community is really, really exciting. And one of the things I did not hear anything mentioned was also about what people in companies and the government buildings and homes are using for biodegradable non-toxic cleaners. And that is something that I go out into the community and educate on and let people know about. So I just think this is so great to get everybody together, because now we can all work together instead of all being individual entities. So I just want to applaud everybody. Didn't they all do a fantastic job?
Okay, just a couple quick closing things for the elected officials up here. In your green folder, there is a CD in there that does have the Green Building Coalition standards, checklist, and reference guides, and also information from Sarasota County. There is sustainability information, so please make sure you take that with you. There will be comment cards, the front desk where you checked in, the registration desk. We would like you to just take a minute and fill that out. Just give us a little feedback, what you thought was good, what you thought wasn't so good about the workshop. I anticipate more of these in the future, so we'd like to know how to make them better for you. I'd like to thank all the elected officials that are here today. I know everybody has a busy schedule, and I appreciate you all taking time to come here and spend the morning with us. Our panelists, thank you for taking your time. One thing we are going to try to do for the educational aspect is we're going to ask each of the speakers today if we can take their PowerPoint presentation and put it on the county website so more people have access to it. So hopefully we'll have all those hooked up and linked up. I'd like Amy and Judy and Darcy to please stand up for a minute. These three really did the yeoman's work organizing this meeting. I just told them to go do it, and these three really put it together. They did all the nuts and bolts and logistics. So I'd like to give these three a big round of applause. And I too would use the word excited about this morning. I'm encouraged. I'm fired up. I think the iron is hot. The time to strike is now. I think we've got a great cross-representation of the community here, and we just need to push it forward. So once again, give that final challenge to municipalities and county. Let's not just sit on this. Let's start moving it forward and become a green community. And with that, I want to thank all of you for showing up this morning. It was a great turnout. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.